If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 151, Foolishness. Although the original series portrayed the ending as seemingly perfect, the residents of Iran, who had been enslaved and oppressed for years, couldn't have gone through all of it without casualties. However, these tragedies were all hidden beneath the facade of so-called beauty. Damn it! How could this scumbag Anro Kyuzen do such a thing? I will make sure he gets the punishment he deserves. Naruto's face revealed an angry expression as he clenched his fists tightly. After saying that, he lifted his head again, looking at the Rurouni Queen receiving cheers from the puppets on the high tower, and expressed some dissatisfaction. As for the Queen, although she is indeed pitiful, I have to say, she's just too foolish. It's been such a long time, and she didn't notice anything wrong. After hearing Naruto's words, everyone's faces showed expressions of speechlessness. Anyone present had the right to say that the Rurouni Queen indeed naive and foolish, but Naruto was the exception. Given his current situation, who was he to criticize others? He couldn't even figure out his own situation yet, how could he have the nerve to comment on someone else? Of course, Naruto couldn't possibly know the thoughts of others. He also didn't notice the strange expressions on everyone's faces. This was because, right after he finished speaking, the Rurouni Queen suddenly fell from the high tower. This caught Naruto off guard for a moment, but he quickly reacted. Chakra erupted from his body, and in the next moment, he dashed out of his original position, heading towards the falling Rurouni Queen. The gaze of everyone followed Naruto's actions, shifting towards the Rurouni Queen. Shinobi, who was supposed to be on guard, was ready to intervene at the moment the Rurouni Queen fell, but Naruto acted before he could. Considering Minato's instructions, Shinobi retracted the insects he was about to use for rescue. Thus, at this moment, everyone remained still, quietly observing Naruto's performance. To be honest, the distance from where the group was to the high tower where the Rurouni Queen was located was still quite far. Catching the Rurouni Queen behind within 2 or 3 seconds was not an impossible task for Naruto. A massive surge of chakra exploded from within him, propelling Naruto rapidly between the high towers. However, this speed was still not enough. The Nine Tails chakra erupted again, boosting Naruto's speed once more. At this point, Naruto's speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to catch with the naked eye. Meanwhile, the falling Rurouni Queen was caught by Naruto mid-air, performing a princess carry. Ah! A piercing scream echoed from the Rurouni Queen in Asahi's arms, reaching his ears. The harsh sound made Naruto flinch. However, he also knew this was not the time for conversation. So, Naruto didn't hold back but carried the Rurouni Queen, leveraging the momentum from the high tower, and brought her to the concealed location of the group. Minato Namikaze watched Naruto landing with the Rurouni Queen in his arms and nodded in satisfaction. He indeed appreciated Naruto's strength. Although the Rurouni Queen, Sarah was still a teenager. Plunging from the high tower suddenly filled her with fear. In those few seconds, Sarah's brain was in a state of blank confusion. Despite being rescued by Naruto, she was still in high-speed motion. Therefore, in those moments, Sarah was entirely unconsciously screaming. However, with Naruto's landing, Sarah also felt the safety provided by the earth. Her brain quickly snapped back, and the events that just happened were overlooked by the overly nervous Sarah. Looking at herself being held by Naruto, she instinctively threw a slap at him. Naruto, on the other hand, gradually took 2 steps back. However, Sarah soon realized the situation around her. At this moment, Naruto was quite confused about why he had received a slap. Due to the distance, he couldn't see what the so-called Rurouni Queen looked like. However, as he got closer, he realized that the Rurouni Queen was the same girl who had been singing when he woke up. Before he could even ask her why she ran away upon seeing him, he ended up receiving a slap directly. Of course, it wasn't just Naruto who was confused, even Minato and the others were left speechless. Sorry about that. Thank you for saving me. Sarah, who had now realized her rude actions, quickly stood up and bowed deeply to Naruto. She had slapped her savior's face despite his goodwill. This was truly hard to express in words. It's okay, it's okay. Seeing Sarah apologize, Naruto simply touched his slapped cheek and forgave her. When it came to forgiving others, Naruto showed great kindness. I'm Naruto Namikaze, a ninja from Konoha. By the way, what's your name, and why did you fall from the high tower? After forgiving Sarah, Naruto scratched his head and asked her. Sarah was still a bit uncertain, so she explained, I'm Sarah, the Queen of Iran. As for just now, it seems someone pushed me. I lost my balance and fell. Upon hearing Sarah's explanation, everyone instantly understood what had happened. Anro-Kuzan must have been scheming behind the scenes, trying to cause Sarah's demise. Asahi found it difficult to comprehend the actions of people like Anro-Kuzan. Despite having such great power, why resort to such sneaky tactics? Raran was already under his control, yet he insisted on playing these games. It was truly incomprehensible. If he directly took action, who could stop him? But instead, he chose this risky plan, step by step. What was this, if not foolishness? Looking at it from another perspective, if Asahi were in Anro-Kuzan's position, he would have resolved anyone posing a threat like Sarah, who was currently defenseless. Yet, as everyone witnessed, Anro-Kuzan didn't choose the most secure plan and went for a riskier one. Could it be that this is what the author considers powerful? Making anyone seem foolish at their whim? In truth, Anro-Kuzan's decision could be understood. After all, after being sneaky for so many years, the essence of being sneaky had deeply ingrained itself in him. In other words, he had gotten used to being sneaky. If he suddenly decided to go out and face everything head-on, Anro-Kuzan might have ended up being taken down immediately. Chapter 152, The Cruel Truth. After all, in various plots, aren't villains following a template like this? So, that's how it is. You must have been harmed by that scoundrel Anro-Kuzan. Naruto expressed his indignation without any euphemism, directly revealing the truth. Hearing this, Sarah frowned in displeasure. Although she might have been secretly harmed just now, it was by no means a reason for everyone to frame Anro-Kuzan. Since her mother's death, her world had been bleak. If it weren't for Anro-Kuzan's encouragement and guidance, she would have given up long ago. Impossible. How could Anro-Kuzan harm me? Moreover, who are you people, and why are you trying to sow discord between Anro-Kuzan and me? Sarah looked at Naruto's group warily, and her overly aggressive actions made Minato and others frown. However, protecting Sarah was still one of their tasks. Even though explaining things to Sarah was troublesome, and she might not believe them, Minato spoke up to clarify. Queen Sarah, I am a ninja from the Hidden Leaf Village. This time, we are here to assist you and protect the country. Minato slightly lifted his mask, revealing the ninja village symbol on his forehead. However, even with the mask lifted, most of his face remained hidden, preventing Naruto from uncovering his identity. After the introduction, Minato continued to explain. As you must be aware, ever since Anro-Kuzan suddenly appeared 6 years ago, he quickly gained the favor of Iran's previous queen, your mother. Now, Anro-Kuzan has the entire Lilan under his control. According to the intelligence collected by Konoha, Anro-Kuzan is attempting to use the dragon vein to create a legion of puppets, intending to use it to unify the ninja world. Currently, his plan is about to succeed, and the puppet legion has already been completed. Now, as long as he kills you, who is capable of controlling the dragon vein, there will be no one left in the world to oppose him. So, there's no need for me to say more about the outcome, right? Even stepping back, how many people could silently appear behind you in Raran? In one breath, Minato explained the general situation to Sarah. However, the thing people fear most is deceiving themselves, and Sarah was currently in that state. Although Minato's words were indeed logical, what did it matter? As the Queen of Iran, Sarah was unwilling to believe such a thing. So, after Minato explained the situation, Sarah immediately retorted without hesitation, impossible. I must have been mistaken. No one pushed me. Do you know how impossible it is for Anro-Kuzan to harm me? At that time, my mother followed Anro-Kuzan's advice, leading to the prosperity of Iran today. Unfortunately, my mother passed away before her aspirations were fulfilled. Due to health reasons, she never had the chance to witness Iran's prosperity. When my mother passed away, if it weren't for Anro-Kuzan's comfort and support, I might not have so quickly formed the conviction to inherit my mother's will. It's all because of Anro-Kuzan's support that Iran enjoys its prosperity today. Just look at these cheering citizens, everyone is happy because of Anro-Kuzan. Having said that, Sarah pointed her finger towards the citizens who were cheering in the distance. Anro-Kuzan is not a good person, you've been deceived. Look at those people, they are puppets created by Anro-Kuzan. Naruto stared at the unresponsive Sarah, shouting with some urgency. He genuinely felt anxious for Queen Sarah because Anro-Kuzan was truly despicable, and Sarah was in a vulnerable position. Puppets. Upon hearing Naruto's words, Sarah's expression stiffened. Then, her face turned unpleasant. She wouldn't allow anyone to tarnish the image of Varan in her heart. Don't talk nonsense. How could these citizens be puppets? Haven't you seen them expressing gratitude, thanking me for the good days my mother brought them? Seeing Sarah still holding on to her beliefs, Naruto, in desperation, went to catch one of a civilian puppet. As Naruto returned with the puppet, its lifeless face came into Sarah's view. The distinctive cracking sound of the puppet's joints indicated that this was not a dream. Confronted with such a gruesome reality, Sarah covered her chest, attempting to escape from this situation. Despite her earlier trust in Naruto, as the facts were revealed, Sarah had to admit that what Naruto and his group said was correct. Naruto might truly have some hidden agenda that she was unaware of. However, despite this revelation, Sarah wanted to make one final struggle. Perhaps Naruto had reasons for doing all this. But with these words, Sarah could no longer muster any defenses because right at this moment, she saw, right in front of the tall building, another her under the protection of puppet guards, ascending to the position that should have belonged to her. All of this pushed Sarah to the brink of collapse. Never did she expect that Lushan, whom both she and her mother trusted exceptionally, would commit such atrocities. In an instant, Sarah couldn't accept the occurrence of such events. Therefore, she chose to escape. Faced with all of this, tears streamed down Sarah's face uncontrollably, crashing through Naruto and running towards the distance. Naruto reached out his hand to stop her, but he didn't know how to comfort her. In this moment of hesitation, Sarah had already run quite far. What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and catch up. She is an essential figure for completing your mission, you can't afford to lose her. Seeing Naruto still lingering, Asahi reminded him irritably. Although he wasn't concerned about the developments of the situation, he was interested in Sarah's ability to control the dragon vein. What if there was a need for this power to assist in the upcoming training, and Sarah accidentally got killed by Naruto? Therefore, Asahi also hoped to protect Sarah's life. Ah, right, I'm going. Hearing Asahi's reminder, Naruto instantly snapped back to reality and chased after Sarah in the direction she left. For the unfortunate Sarah, Naruto genuinely wanted to help her from the bottom of his heart. He didn't want to witness Sarah being harmed. Hehe, Sarah is left to Naruto for protection, you should be able to rest assured now, right? Watching Naruto's gradually disappearing figure, Asahi lightly laughed and said to Minato. Chapter 153, Dragon Vein. Upon hearing this, Minato nodded slightly. Indeed, Naruto's strength is not weak, and he shouldn't have any problems protecting Queen Sarah, Minato said. However, immediately after, his tone changed. But I'm still a bit uneasy. After all, we are in the enemy's stronghold. Relying solely on Naruto, if they encounter any danger, he would surely be limited in his actions. Asahi also agreed with this viewpoint. Indeed, even though Naruto controlled the dragon vein, still had mediocre strength, but his tenacious vitality was enough to pose a significant challenge. Indeed, if there are enemies, Naruto alone might have some difficulty. In that case, what do you propose? Asahi nodded and asked Minato. We'll follow them, secretly protect them. This way, we can safeguard Queen Sarah and gather information by observing the terrain. I wonder what Lord Asahi plans to do next. Minato explained, indicating that if it weren't for Asahi's presence, he would have led Shisui to follow immediately. Upon hearing this, Asahi understood that his presence somewhat limited Minato's actions. Well, Asahi didn't particularly care about the developments of their events. After all, thanks to Naruto's presence and his words, Asahi already had an idea of what was to come. In that case, go ahead. I plan to see what this dragon vein is all about. Asahi said to Minato, showing no intention of continuing to act with them. That's fine, but Lord Asahi, you also know that when two people from different eras meet, it can bring unpredictable consequences to the world. As Minato spoke, he glanced at Shisui and the others standing behind Asahi. Minato didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was clear to Asahi. Under normal circumstances, it was challenging for someone to experience time travel. However, once such a situation occurred, to avoid unnecessary impacts on the future, the best solution was to seal the memories of everyone who knew about it. After they could no longer influence reality, the seal would be lifted. So, seeing Minato's expression, Asahi understood that he was hesitant to bring up the idea of sealing Shisui and the others' memories. Asahi didn't want to make it difficult for Minato. He directly said, "I understand. After you resolve the matter, we can deal with this together." Seeing Asahi's response, Minato also felt relieved. After bidding farewell, Minato left with Choza and Shibi, heading in the direction of Naruto and Sarah. "Master, are we going to the Dragon Vein and not joining Lord Minato?" With Minato leaving, Shisui looked up and asked Asahi. "Of course, the Dragon Vein is quite useful for me. Also, their team can handle themselves." Asahi smiled and explained to Shisui. Upon hearing this, Yujito, standing beside them, asked curiously, "Master, what exactly is the Dragon Vein? Do you know where it is? From your previous conversation, the Dragon Vein seems to be well hidden, right?" Hearing Yujito's series of questions, Asahi smiled and shook his head. "Hidden? The Dragon Vein wasn't some item that could be carried around. As a massive chakra source, how could it be easily hidden? While ordinary people might not sense anything, Asahi, through nature energy, effortlessly detected the location of the Dragon Vein. The Dragon Vein, simply put, is a massive chakra. It's not something that can be hidden," Asahi explained. "Follow me, and you'll understand what the Dragon Vein is in a little while." Asahi briefly explained and then led the three towards the location of the Dragon Vein. As for the terrain, under his powerful sensing ability, the complex terrain of Varan had no impact on Asahi. Shisui, Yujito and Sakumo followed behind Asahi, turning left and right into an underground space. Here, like a massive altar, several tall pillars stood around. Simple furnishings emitted a profound sense of solemnity. Asahi looked towards the center of the altar, sensing an indescribably massive chakra quietly existing beneath it. Moreover, that immense chakra was continuously separating energy and passing it through the surrounding pillars to the outside of the altar. Without guessing, this was the device Anrokuzen used to control the puppet army. Controlling such a massive puppet army naturally required an enormous amount of chakra. Yet, even so, Asahi did not feel the source of the Dragon Vein, and there was no decrease in the chakra amount. This piqued Asahi's curiosity. The law of energy conservation exists in any world. Why did the Dragon Vein maintain its original state even after consuming a considerable amount of energy? After circling the altar, Asahi did not find anything special about it. With his level of strength and perception, he easily discerned that this barrier could only guide the Dragon Vein's chakra out and utilize it. Such an altar could be created by Asahi in minutes. From this perspective, it could be seen that Anrokuzen's strength was indeed lacking. He controlled the Dragon Vein, a treasure trove, yet only managed to create such a trinket in 6 years. As a minor boss, Anrokuzen was an extreme failure. However, Asahi wouldn't mind Anrokuzen failure. Extracting a small amount of chakra from the pillars guiding the Dragon Vein, Asahi controlled it in his hand, carefully observing the purple energy mass. Frowning, Asahi noticed that the chakra of the Dragon Vein was extremely similar to natural energy. To make a comparison, Asahi separately extracted a mass of natural energy. Looking at the two chakras in his hand, one purple and the other colorless, their essence was very similar. The only difference was that the purple Dragon Vein chakra had a slightly higher concentration than ordinary natural energy. For example, two nearly identical sized energy masses in Asahi's hand, the Dragon Vein's energy effect could be more than twice that of normal natural energy. Could it be that the Dragon Vein is compressed nature energy? A faint doubt flashed in Asahi's mind. To clarify this, Asahi immediately condensed a large amount of natural energy, attempting compression. However, regardless of how Asahi compressed it, he was unsuccessful. Helpless, he could only merge a large amount of natural energy into the Dragon Vein energy, diluting it. As the saying goes, with great skill comes great courage. Backed by his powerful strength, Asahi was not afraid of accidents in doing so. Chapter 154, Anrokuzen Weakness. With the infusion of nature energy, the color of the Dragon Vein's energy slowly began to fade. Starting from purple, it gradually lightened until it approached colorless. Of course, it was impossible to truly dilute Dragon Vein energy into colorless natural energy. Because fundamentally, Dragon Vein energy was always slightly higher in quality than nature energy. Exhaling a long breath, Asahi dispersed the chakra he had condensed in his hand, and the two energies gradually dissipated into the air. Asahi understood that the so-called Dragon Vein chakra was what people referred to as natural energy. No wonder the power of the dragon vein couldn't be wielded by ordinary individuals. Ordinary natural energy, if absorbed without a specialized absorption method and also reaching certain requirements, would lead to various adverse consequences for a ninja. Moreover, dragon vein energy was nature energy compressed to high density. One could imagine how terrifying the consequences would be if this kind of energy were inhaled into the body. The formation of dragon vein chakra also elucidated Asahi's next method of training. Building on the existing foundation, he needed to significantly compress the energy within his body to achieve a qualitative transformation. However, as Asahi had just attempted, the usual compression methods couldn't effectively compress nature energy. The chakra extracted from his own body, like regular chakra, Asahi could consciously control its compression. But for nature energy, born from the world, an energy that conformed to the essence of the sixth path, Asahi found it challenging to compress at his current stage. Consequently, the importance of the dragon vein was now apparent. As a preformed high-quality nature energy, the existence of the dragon vein could greatly reduce the time it took for Asahi to suddenly reach the next stage of his development. Suppressing his inner excitement, Asahi knew that he had made the right decision this time. Without practicing the sage mode, their sensitivity to nature energy was not very strong. Especially for advanced nature energy like the dragon vein. If the dragon vein chakra didn't erupt, it would be challenging for them to perceive the difference underground. So, at the beginning, they didn't notice anything different here. But as Asahi extracted a chakra mass from the nearby pillar, they understood that this was the so-called dragon vein. Asahi was immersed in the comparison between natural energy and dragon vein energy. His face showed a seriousness, as if words "do not disturb" were engraved on it. So, Shisui and Yujito didn't dare to disturb him until Asahi withdrew his efforts, and that's when they asked. "Master, how about it? Have you figured out what the dragon vein is?" Yujito asked with some confusion. Asahi nodded without denying, "Indeed, the dragon vein has been very helpful to me. The dragon vein is the source of energy formed by the aggregation of countless high-density natural energies. It plays a crucial role in the final stages of my progress." After calming his emotions, Asahi explained to Shisui and Yujito. Hearing Asahi's words, Shisui and Yujito's eyes sparkled with a compelling light. If even Asahi could use this dragon vein for training, wouldn't their gains be even greater? Asahi delivered a light tap to the heads of the two, abruptly interrupting their random thoughts. From their expressions, it was easy for Asahi to deduce what they were contemplating. However, the absorption of natural energy had prerequisites. Possessing chakra at the level of a jounin was the foundation. Even with extraordinary techniques, exceptions couldn't be made. Not to mention dragon vein energy, which had much higher quality than regular natural energy. Forget about the idea of training using the dragon vein. You haven't even mastered the sage mode yet, and you've come this far. To utilize the dragon vein for training, your strength needs to surpass that of your shadow clones. Asahi rubbed his fingers, which had just made intimate contact with their foreheads, and amusingly addressed the two. "Master, can't you be a bit gentler?" Shisui and Yujito, with mouths agape and hands covering their heads, looked at Asahi with grievances. Just as Asahi was about to say something more, the ground suddenly shook. As the tremors grew more intense, even the structures outside the altar collapsed, directly sealing the altar, where the dragon vein was located. Shisui and Yujito were instantly taken aback. Looking up at Asahi with confusion, Asahi just shook his head and said, "It's okay. Outside, Naruto and the others are fighting with Anro-Kyuzen." Through a broad perception, Asahi spotted Naruto and others fighting Anro-Kyuzen and his group on the other side of the city. Moreover, with the ongoing battle, their distance from this place was getting closer. The strong fluctuations from the battle made the earth tremble uncontrollably. As they got closer, the residual effects of the battle had an increasingly significant impact on the surroundings. This was also the reason for the damage to the machinery outside the altar. "Oh, is that so? Then let's go help them," Shisui said with some concern. In response, Asahi just shook his head. Although he hadn't experienced it personally, Asahi had seen it just now. Anro-Kyuzen's strength was, to be honest, a bit weak. If not for the support of dragon vein energy, he would have been killed several times over by now. Yet, even with this support, he was firmly in a disadvantaged position in the battle against Naruto. After all, Anro-Kyuzen had transformed himself into a puppet form similar to Sasori, and even more advanced, completely abandoning his human form. In this puppet form, puppet masters would have a chakra core, similar to the human heart. As long as this chakra core was shattered, Anrokuzen would die instantly, becoming a pile of puppet fragments. If Minato and his team used their full power, Asahi guaranteed that Anrokuzen wouldn't survive more than 2 minutes. With Choza using super multi-size technique to control Anrokuzen, Shinobi using her insects to directly locate Anrokuzen chakra core. Then, to prevent Anrokuzen from moving his chakra core, Minato would use the Flying Thunder God technique to instantly resolve the battle. Chapter 155, Raround Population. For someone like Anrokuzen, Asahi had no desire to intervene. Although beating weak opponents was fun, what importance did it hold compared to studying the Dragon Vein and enhancing one's strength? Moreover, Minato was there to observe Naruto's battle with Anrokuzen, what business was it of his to interfere? However, Asahi didn't want to deal with Anrokuzen, but Anrokuzen had different plans. Amidst the ongoing battle where Naruto and his team are chased by Anrokuzen straight for the altar, someone else arrived faster than Anrokuzen, and they are all the surviving Raround residents gathered outside the altar. Led by Queen Sarah of Raround, the Raround citizens who first fled the battlefield arrived at the only safe place, the altar. Unfortunately, the switch outside the altar was damaged. Looking at the nearby safe zone, Sarah felt incredibly anxious. They were just one step away, yet they couldn't do anything about it. As Anrokuzen approached, Sarah knew they had no hope left. When Anrokuzen arrived, how many people here would still be alive? Sarah, somewhat venting her frustration, used the chakra blade in her hand to chip away at the altar switch, futilely depleting her own stamina. Asahi inside the altar observed all this. In such a situation, he couldn't focus on his training anymore. Asahi, with the correct set of principles, couldn't just stand by and watch people die. Although Sarah and the others wouldn't be in danger, their current emotional state was indeed pitiable. Opening his eyes, Asahi sighed deeply at the stone gate. Well, since you need hope, I'll give it to you. Consider it a little return for utilizing your Dragon Vein for my training. Sighing inwardly, Asahi stood up directly. Extending one hand, he lightly tapped the stone gate. A surge of chakras shot out from his fingertips. As this chakra entered the stone gate, the dormant gate slowly trembled. Meanwhile, Sarah, who was venting her frustration outside the gate, also felt the gate shaking. Her expression brightened as Sarah, frequently visiting this place, naturally knew it was the situation before the stone gate opened. Could it be that she accidentally made the mechanism work properly just now? Sarah's thought flashed by, but her attention was quickly drawn to the opening gate. Unlike before, this time, Sarah's eyes were filled with hope. The opening of the stone gate represented the determination of a queen, symbolizing hope for the people of Iran. As the stone gate slowly opened, the figures of Asahi and his group also entered Sarah's sight. Asahi and his team, she had seen before. Although they hadn't communicated, Sarah knew they were allies, part of Naruto's team. At the same time, Sarah also understood that what happened just now wasn't her accidentally triggering the switch. It was these people in front of her intentionally helping them. Hastily ushering everyone into the interior of the altar, Sarah rushed to Asahi's side and deeply bowed. "Thank you very much for helping us. I am truly grateful," Sarah said sincerely, not knowing how to express her gratitude for this life-saving favor. Any words seemed somewhat powerless. Unable to figure out what to say, Sarah kept expressing her thanks. However, Asahi didn't accept her bow. Because he knew Sarah and the others weren't in danger. He merely offered them a hope to survive. So, he couldn't bear the gratitude Sarah expressed. Initially, Asahi could have stopped Sarah's bow, but he knew that if he did, it would make Sarah even more burdened. "Hurry and get up, I've just provided you with some comfort." Asahi lifted Sarah and explained to her. Asahi actually had a good impression of Sarah. After all, in Asahi's eyes, Sarah was just a naive girl. Despite being the queen of Iran and bearing heavy responsibilities, she had lived in a false, perfect world due to her mother's affection in her childhood and Anrokuzen deception in her youth. Although reality wasn't beautiful, in the false world painted by Anrokuzen, she had always been a successful queen. This greatly preserved her innocence. However, in such a short time, such a person could make such a significant change. This wasn't only because of the responsibilities she carried, but her inherent qualities were also indispensable. "Regardless, I sincerely thank you." Although Asahi explained, Sarah wasn't ready to believe it. Saying this, Sarah was preparing to bow in gratitude, but this time, Asahi stopped her. Expressions of gratitude become tiresome after a while. If Sarah kept thanking them endlessly, Asahi feared it might never end. All right, think whatever you want. Asahi, feeling helpless, rubbed his forehead. This matter was truly inexplicable. If explained, it might damage Naruto's image. During the conversation between Asahi and Sarah, all the residents of Iran had already entered the altar. Of course, the quick entrance was also related to the guidance of Asahi, Yujito, Shisui, and Sakumo. At this moment, the residents of Iran were secretly sizing up Asahi. Although Sarah had seen Asahi and knew he was with Naruto's team, these ordinary residents didn't know. They were curious about this man who made their queen so grateful. They had heard Asahi and Sarah's conversation just now, and they understood that this man was their lifesaver. Therefore, their eyes on Asahi were filled with gratitude. Simultaneously, as the residents of Iran secretly observed Asahi, Asahi had already stored information about these Iran residents in his mind. Looking at these curious residents, Asahi couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Even though Iran was just a small country in the ninja world, its population couldn't be lower than 10,000. But now, only less than 500 residents of Iran were survive. One could imagine how many people Iran had lost. As Asahi predicted, the harsh reality was completely concealed beneath the veneer of a beautiful ending. Chapter 156, Queen Sarah Reject. Looking at the exhausted yet relieved expressions of the people around him, Asahi didn't know what to say. The turbulent times were like this, perhaps they had already become accustomed to death. So, once there was hope of survival, they would forget their pain. However, some people were different. Take Sarah, the Queen of Iran, for example. At this moment, although she was bursting with passion, playing the role of a leader, the sorrow and sadness between her eyebrows were undeniable. Bearing such a heavy burden at her age, and that too in such a short period, truly impressed Asahi. Have you thought about what you want for the future? Watching Sarah, who was now full of spirit, Asahi suddenly asked. Hey? In the future, I might find a stable place and live a good life with my people. Sarah was taken aback by Asahi's question, but she quickly recovered. After a brief thought, she replied. Have you ever thought about changing your way of life? Asahi asked again, deepening Sarah's confusion. She didn't understand what Asahi meant. Although she didn't understand, she had a good habit of asking when things were unclear. What do you mean? Asahi gave Sarah a deep look and then said, have you ever thought about becoming my student and becoming a ninja? Yes, Asahi was considering taking Sarah as his disciple. He hadn't even investigated Sarah's talent and he don't even care about it. Compared to extraordinary talent, it was Sarah's sense of responsibility and duty that moved Asahi more. As long as Sarah agreed, even if she had a D-rank talent or even lower, Asahi would take her as his disciple. He was even prepared to spend time improving Sarah's physical condition. So, would Sarah agree? Within the ninja community, Asahi was a prominent figure. This Sarah could see. After all, in the short time of their previous contact, Asahi clearly occupied the focus of everyone. Although Sarah was a puppet queen before, she could still see this. Moreover, becoming a ninja was something very desirable. After all, in this world, power was everything, and ninjas were the ones who wielded that power. To be honest, after witnessing the extraordinary power of Naruto and others, Sarah was very eager to become a ninja. But how could she make such a choice? Looking at the few remaining residents around her, their eyes were nervously fixed on her. Their homes were gone, and she, as their queen, was their last spiritual support. If she also gave up on them, then Raran would truly be lost. Sorry, sir. Thank you for your kindness, but compared to becoming a ninja, I feel that being the queen of Raran suits me better. Raran is an inheritance left by my mother, and I want to protect it well. And my people still need me. To become your disciple, to become a ninja, I would inevitably be involved in ninja conflicts. But what Raran needs most now is stability. With a determined bite of her teeth, Sarah directly rejected Asahi's kind offer. At first, she felt a bit regretful, but as she spoke, her heart suddenly became clear. Yes, for her now, protecting the last legacy of Raran was the most important thing. Hearing these words, the worries in the hearts of Raran's residents were suddenly alleviated. Fortunately, their queen did not give up on them. After hearing Sarah's words, Asahi clearly hesitated for a moment. However, he quickly reacted. Although he was rejected, there was not a hint of dissatisfaction in his heart. Choosing to take Sarah as his disciple, what he valued was her strong sense of responsibility and duty, right? Now that he was rejected, wasn't it proof that he hadn't misjudged her? But don't you know that by becoming a ninja and wielding powerful strength, you can better protect your people? Asahi tried to persuade Sarah. The more he looked at the Queen of Iran, the more satisfied he became. Unfortunately, despite his good intentions, Asahi faced the first time he couldn't achieve what he wanted. I'm really sorry, sir. Although that's true, if I become a ninja, the future dangers for Iran will increase exponentially. Although the temptation to become a ninja is great, I can't joke with the safety of my people. Sarah rejected once again, feeling guilty about her decision. Asahi was her lifesaver, now looking up to her, wanting to take her as a disciple and teach her to become a ninja. Yet, she repeatedly declined. Honestly, it felt somewhat inappropriate. But she didn't have a choice. If nothing unexpected happened, Iran would spend a long time in exile. If they were ordinary people, ninjas wouldn't generally harm them without a reason. Sarah knew this. It was a rule among ninjas not to harm civilians without cause. And how likely would ordinary bandits attack a group like theirs? Even if they encountered ordinary bandits, with so many people, they wouldn't fear those thugs. However, once she became a ninja, her group would no longer be considered ordinary people. At that point, if they encountered ninjas, Sarah had no doubt they would be targeted. After all, it was a time of war now. Ninjas from other villages couldn't be trusted. In this period, encountering ninjas in the wild, the best choice was to eliminate them. Asahi understood these things. He just wanted to persuade Sarah. Although he was very satisfied with Sarah's choice, he still felt regretful. Of course, he could choose to provide protection for the surviving people of Iran, allowing Sarah to become his disciple without worries. However, this was clearly impossible. Asahi didn't have so much time and energy to waste on protecting these remnants of Iran. He wasn't a saint, he had his own goals. Although it was regrettable, Asahi respected Sarah's choice. Well, in that case, I'll wish you success in advance. Asahi expressed his blessings, with a tone that carried regret for losing a potential disciple. Thank you for your blessings. Boom. As Sarah's voice fell, there was suddenly a violent roar outside the stone door. All the surviving people of Iran changed their expressions. They knew that Naruto, that monster, had arrived. Chapter 157, Iran civilian beg for help. They had witnessed the terror of that monster, and the vast city could not withstand his attacks. Although Sarah claimed this place to be a safe zone, the people still felt fearful. After all, the shadow cast by Naruto was not something that could be easily erased. Sarah's expression changed multiple times as well. The recent events had made it clear to her that Naruto, empowered by the dragon vein, was not someone they could easily deal with. So, the urgent task now was to seal the dragon vein, creating an opportunity for Naruto and others. Thinking about this, Sarah bit her teeth hard. Then, she ran towards the outside of the stone door, intending to reach the source of the dragon vein on the lower level and seal it. Queen Sarah, where are you going? The surviving residents of Iran shouted as they watched Sarah trying to leave. Sarah turned to look at everyone. She knew this journey would be very dangerous. However, she still had to go. Because it was her responsibility, her mission. I'm sorry, everyone. I have something I must do. I will try my best to come back alive and continue to protect you. After saying that, Sarah resolutely turned away from the altar. Queen Sarah, everyone looked in the direction Sarah left with worried expressions. They knew Sarah possessed the power to control the dragon vein. So, her purpose for this journey was self-evident. However, under the terrifying strength of Naruto, could Sarah complete her mission unscathed? The hearts of all the people of Iran were filled with worry. But what could these ordinary folks do? Suddenly, they thought of Asahi, whom Sarah treated with respect. Although they didn't know who Asahi was, he was the last person they could turn to for help. Sir, please save Queen Sarah. She has already tried very hard. Suddenly, someone among the remnants of Iran knelt to Asahi. Following that, more and more people knelt before Asahi, requesting his help for Sarah. Master, please help them. Watching these remnants of Iran in front of him, both Shisui and Yujito felt sympathy in their hearts. So, the two of them also persuaded Asahi. Even Sakumo was somewhat moved. It was a natural sympathy for the weak. Okay. Listening to everyone's words, Asahi softly said. Although his voice was not loud, thanks to chakra manipulation, it entered the ears of everyone. This sudden agreement brought a surge of joy to the hearts of the remnants of Varan. Shisui and Yujito also looked at Asahi in surprise. Although they were confident that they could make Asahi help the people of Varan, they didn't expect him to agree so readily. After all, Asahi had always maintained an attitude of not helping each other. There were numerous situations of ongoing battles they encountered along the way, with one side being Jae-good, and the other evil. But they never saw Asahi lend a hand to either side. Was Asahi's unexpected agreement surprising? Not really. His appreciation for Sarah was enough to prompt him to protect her safety. Moreover, he still needed to use the dragon vein of their country for his own training. What was wrong with paying a little in advance? Although Sarah seemed not to encounter danger in the original work, who knows now? With his butterfly effect in play, any event in the ninja world could potentially take a different turn. Thank you for your help, sir. Thank you for your help. The survivors of Varan knelt down to Asahi, expressing their gratitude. Asahi's heart remained calm in response. He had witnessed such scenes many times before. In his many years in the ninja world, he had become completely accustomed to its ways. It might seem exciting, but tragedy lurked at every corner. The most significant tragedy in this world was being weak. In this world filled with death, weakness was the original sin. Ordinary people led lives amidst deep waters and raging fires. A mere genin could pose a deadly threat to countless ordinary individuals. Therefore, Asahi made no response to the gratitude of the remnants of Varan. Instead, he turned and walked away towards the outside. Shisui and Yujito exchanged a glance and chose not to follow Asahi. The survivors of Varan still needed protection here. In case of any danger, they could still have a means of dealing with it. As for Sakumo, he naturally stayed here to protect Shisui and Yujito. Since he was now their master, he had to take responsibility. Besides, with Asahi's strength, was there a need for him to follow? If he couldn't even handle the simple task of protecting Sarah, then Asahi wouldn't be the real Asahi, he would be an imposter. Leaving the altar, Asahi followed the fluctuations of the battle between Naruto and Anro-Kyuzen, arriving directly at the source of the dragon vein. Similar to the secret room just now, this place was a larger altar. Surrounded by massive stone pillars, there was also a formation in the center formed by statues of 4 figures. The energy of the dragon vein condensed from there, supplying Anro-Kyuzen. Moreover, due to the vast space on this level, it appeared somewhat desolate. However, the place had already undergone a significant transformation. The attacks of Anro-Kyuzen and Naruto had caused severe damage here. Although Anro-Kyuzen was initially pressed by Naruto, due to the influence of the dragon vein, Anro-Kyuzen suffered no injuries at this point. Naruto, on the other hand, was different. Despite having the colossal 9 tails as a power source, his stamina was limited. Extended periods of intense combat had left him exhausted. Therefore, the current battle situation no longer favored Naruto as it did before. At this moment, Naruto was being pressed by Anro-Kyuzen. This frustrated Naruto. Although Anro-Kyuzen's strength wasn't formidable, Naruto couldn't seem to defeat him. Moreover, Anro-Kyuzen was turning the tables and consuming Naruto's strength. Which opposite to what Naruto had planned before. With his robust physique and the 9 tails as a massive power source, he used to take out any opponent he could defeat in one go. If the opponent was too strong, he would wear them down slowly. After all, he had excellent stamina and chakra. But fate had a way of turning things around. Anro-Kyuzen leaned against the dragon vein and had transformed himself into a puppet, ensuring he suffered no depletion. However, Naruto, no matter how strong his physique, still experienced exhaustion. So today, Naruto Namikaze, one of the outstanding members among the Hidden Leaf, was defeated using his favored combat style. Chapter 158, Asahi come to play. This is simply shameful. However, he had no way out. In the recent battle, his allies had left one by one, exhausted or injured. Now, he could only support himself alone. Spitting out a mouthful of saliva, a trace of blood mixed within it. Tch. Naruto disdainfully curled his lips. He knew he was injured, but Anro-Kyuzen was still full of vitality. It seemed like he had to go all out this time. Watching the enormous puppet that resembled a flying scorpion in front of him, Naruto calmly thought, then began to mobilize the 9 tails chakra within him. Although Naruto didn't know why, the 9 tails within him suddenly fell into a deep sleep. But it didn't matter. Even though he might be a bit slower in mobilizing the tailed beast chakra without the Nine Tails cooperation this time, it wouldn't affect his peak strength. With the gathering of the Nine Tails chakra, a crimson-tailed beast cloak began to form around Naruto. However, before he could complete the mobilization of the Nine Tails chakra, Sarah suddenly rushed into the battlefield. Seeing Sarah's arrival, a look of anxiety instantly appeared on Naruto's face. "Sarah, get out of here quickly!" Naruto shouted at Sarah, as he couldn't afford to protect her now. However, with Sarah's arrival, it wasn't just him who noticed. Anrokuzen, at this moment, naturally also saw Sarah's arrival. Seeing Sarah rush back, Anrokuzen sneered, then said, "Sarah, you're back. Are you ready to sacrifice your life for Lord Anrokuzen?" While speaking, Anrokuzen grinned strangely. He regretted Sarah escaping just now. If Sarah had stayed hidden in the secret room altar built by the former queen, he wouldn't have had a way. But now Sarah had actively come out, presenting him with a golden opportunity. After all, regarding Sarah's escape, he not only felt regret but also some fear. He had a tough time in the recent battle. Although he currently had the upper hand, he had been beaten badly before. If it weren't for the undying body formed by the dragon vein, he would have been done for. With Sarah, who could control the sealing dragon vein, hiding in a safe area, how could he relax? As long as Sarah wasn't eliminated, he would have to worry forever. Through the recent battle, he also understood that his strength was still not powerful enough. But now, Sarah had unexpectedly revealed herself, making him excited. Therefore, as soon as he finished speaking, he directly controlled the giant scorpion tail of the puppet and attacked Sarah. Sure enough, as Asahi speculated. Due to his existence, Naruto was much stronger than in the original. Strong enough to beat Anrokuzen easily. So, Anrokuzen didn't play around with Sarah due to his strong strength. Instead, he went all out. Seeing Anrokuzen's attack, Naruto was surprised. Because just now, he needed to gather the Nine Tails chakra, and the distance between him and Anrokuzen had already widened. Moreover, Anrokuzen's position happened to be on the side of the entrance. In other words, Anrokuzen was closest to Sarah. Watching Sarah about to be attacked, Naruto didn't care about gathering tailed beast chakra anymore. He rushed towards Anrokuzen with all his might, attempting to interrupt his attack. Because he knew he couldn't rescue Sarah in time, he could only protect her by intercepting Anrokuzen. However, Anrokuzen had no intention of dodging, planning to resist Naruto's attack head-on and then deal with Sarah. As long as he got rid of Sarah, he would have no worries. Then, he could use the power of the dragon vein to restore himself. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Just as Sarah arrived at the source of the dragon vein, her heart twitched violently. She never expected to be so unlucky. The moment she arrived, she ran into Anrokuzen head-on. Moreover, Anrokuzen was quite shameless. He first distracted her by saying a few words, shifting her attention, and then sneakily attacked her. But one must admit, Anrokuzen succeeded, she was indeed distracted. But was it really necessary? She couldn't have dodged his attack anyway. Sarah was filled with despair as she watched the puppet's scorpion tail grow larger before her eyes. Perhaps sensing the threat of death, Sarah, who couldn't avoid the attack in the first place, closed her eyes fiercely. At this moment, her brain was blank. However, after waiting with closed eyes for a long time, the imagined pain did not come. Could it be that she was knocked out without even feeling the pain? Sarah was full of question marks, bewilderedly opening her eyes. She found a man standing in front of her. It was the person who had helped her before, Asahi. At this moment, Asahi held the enormous puppet scorpion tail with one hand. Asahi's figure formed a sharp contrast with Anrokuzen's massive puppet body. But it was precisely because of this contrast that it appeared astonishing. The huge scorpion tail that Asahi held with one hand could no longer advance. This was not because of Asahi's great strength, but because of the impact of chakra, which easily blocked this attack. If you observe, you will notice a thin layer of energy attached to Asahi's palm. Continuous force was released from the palm, neutralizing the force of Anrokuzen's attack. But at the fingertips, the suction force was released, preventing Anrokuzen's scorpion tail from moving. Master! With Asahi's appearance, Naruto also shouted with joy. Then, he threw the raised Nan, condensed with tailed beast chakra, fiercely at the giant puppet's head. A powerful impact caused Anrokuzen to want to fly horizontally. However, his tail was under Asahi's control, so a ridiculous scene occurred. Anrokuzen's enormous scorpion tail broke off completely in Asahi's hand due to the powerful impact on the upper body. Without the scorpion tail, Anrokuzen looked even more grotesque. Asahi, looking at the enormous scorpion tail in his hand, also showed a hint of surprise. He only wanted to protect Sarah from harm, but who would have thought that Anrokuzen's puppet body was so fragile? He didn't pay attention earlier. If he had observed in advance, he would have let go. After all, according to the usual practice in the ninja world, puppet materials were very sturdy. Especially for puppets of this caliber, all the materials used were top-notch. How did they end up with low-quality materials in Anrokuzen's case? Actually, it wasn't Anrokuzen's fault. After all, it could be infinitely regenerated. Why bother with such good materials? If you had that kind of money, wouldn't it be better to buy more low-level materials? When a puppet made of low-level materials broke, you could just regenerate it, and the effect would be the same as with high-level materials. Chapter 159, Dragon Vein Altar. Moreover, do you think Raran has resources? Raran has nothing except for a dragon vein. Over the years, Anrokuzen has put a lot of effort into transforming Raran while ensuring not arouse suspicion from the major ninja villages. So, where does the money come from to create a high-quality puppet army? Even his trump card puppet, cobbled together using puppet forces, was makeshift. So, as long as life is tolerable, why bother about anything else? Faced with this situation, Asahi could only shake his head helplessly. He casually tossed the puppet in his hand aside and, for the first time in reality, saw this creature that Anrokuzen had transformed into, neither human nor ghost. Similarly, he easily sensed the presence of Minato team hidden in the shadows. Anrokuzen stared at Asahi with a dark look in his eyes. He was filled with anger towards this man who suddenly appeared and saved Sarah. He was well aware that Asahi was his enemy, and Asahi's strength was definitely beyond his reach. But that was okay, he wasn't afraid. As long as he could stop Sarah, he, backed by the dragon vein, would be immortal, invincible. So, Anrokuzen's goal was clear, to use any means necessary to eliminate Sarah. Even if that failed, he had to prevent Sarah from closing the dragon vein. Thinking of this, Anrokuzen's dragon vein chakra surged again. The broken scorpion tail, guided by the chakra, once again assembled onto his puppet body. With the reassembly of the puppet body, Anrokuzen rushed towards Sarah. The colossal puppet body created a strong impact on Sarah's vision. For Anrokuzen, who dared to charge forward again, Asahi frowned with some impatience. He didn't want to bother with Anrokuzen, he was only here to ensure Sarah's safety. But Anrokuzen, time and time again, obstructed him. Didn't he realize that Asahi existed? Asahi couldn't tolerate Anrokuzen's behavior. A direct kick, supported by the power of the inner eight extremist fist and the immense chakra, sent Anrokuzen flying. In midair, his puppet body couldn't withstand such a heavy blow and shattered piece by piece. This was with Asahi holding back a considerable amount of strength. At this moment, Anrokuzen's heart was on the verge of collapse. He thought he could drag Asahi down just now. But the next second, he was sent flying by a kick and lost control of half of his body. Moreover, if he knew Asahi's thoughts, his internal collapse would be deeper. What does it mean that he obstructed Asahi? It was Asahi who threatened him first. You say that you want to kill Sarah, someone who poses a threat to your life. Is there something wrong with that? For the sake of his safety, what did Anrokuzen do wrong? It was Asahi, who chose to stand by Sarah. But there was no way, Asahi had this kind of personality. The instinct to protect his own had been engraved in his bones. Although Sarah didn't choose him as her master, she was still someone he had confidence in. Of course, neither side was aware of these thoughts. After kicking away Anrokuzen, Asahi casually glanced towards the shadows. Although it was an easily overlooked, ordinary movement, it was enough for Minato's team, hidden in the darkness, to understand. Minato knew he had been discovered by Asahi. Moreover, Asahi had seen through his little tricks. So, Minato no longer had any intention of hiding. Of course, the most crucial thing was that he had observed Naruto quite carefully. Although it was unclear what would happen in the future, having such a descendant already satisfied him. Watching the three people emerge from the shadows, Anrokuzen, who was repairing his puppet body, changed his expression multiple times. Just now, the three of them left the battlefield under the pretext of being injured. Due to his overconfidence, he hadn't doubted their departure. However, looking at the current state of the three, it didn't seem like an exhausted state. Could it be that he was deceived again? Anrokusen thought helplessly, life indeed had its ups and downs. The once confident Anrokusen faced consecutive fatal blows at this moment. Now, he had no hope of killing Sarah. Protecting the source of the dragon vein and preventing Sarah from sealing it had become his greatest wish. Meanwhile, Naruto, observing the three members of Team Minato walking out, was also surprised. He had witnessed the three being seriously injured just now, and he didn't expect them to recover so quickly. Yes, even the easygoing Naruto hadn't processed it yet. The person in front of him was actually his own father. After all, the first impression had been too severe. Haha, my big brothers, you've recovered. Naruto laughed heartily, surprising Minato. Although Minato had acknowledged Naruto's character and strength, he couldn't help but feel speechless at Naruto's carefree attitude. Yeah, that's right, Minato responded somewhat weakly, expressing his helplessness. However, to Naruto, it seemed like the after-effects of Minato's injuries. You guys, seriously, what do you take me for? Watching Naruto laugh, Anrokusen couldn't hold back his anger. At this moment, the once vigorous Anrokusen suffered a series of fatal blows. He no longer had any hope of killing Sarah. Safeguarding the source of the dragon vein, not allowing Sarah to seal it, became his greatest wish. In the heat of his anger, Anrokusen burst forth with a large amount of purple chakra. The dense concentration provided significant protection for the puppet. With the enhancement from natural energy, the strength of Anrokusen's puppet body was now comparable to the toughest steel. Although Anrokusen spoke as if he were invincible with the dragon vein source, he did not take the initiative to attack. Instead, he firmly guarded the central altar, preventing the approach of Asahi and others. At this moment, as long as he held his ground, it meant Anrokusen had achieved the final victory. Chapter 160, Anrokusen Fatal Weakness. Anrokusen isn't stupid, he clearly can't win the fight and engaging with Naruto and others would be foolish. Seeing Anrokusen's stubborn resistance, Naruto rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. He was unsure how to handle this situation. Anrokusen was genuinely challenging to deal with, there seemed to be no way to defeat him. Brothers, I'll engage Anrokusen head-on shortly. Seize the opportunity to protect Sarah and approach the central altar to seal the dragon vein. Naruto said with a serious expression, knowing Sarah was Anrokusen's nemesis. This arrangement was the best plan Naruto could think of. After saying this, Naruto prepared to attack Anrokusen to execute his plan. However, before he could act, Minato stopped him. Take a break, Naruto. It's time for us to step in after watching for so long, Minato said, though he wore a mask, his eyes revealed a smiling expression. Hey? What do you mean? Suddenly hearing Minato's words, Naruto was puzzled. However, Minato didn't explain. It was something that would become clear as events unfolded. Choza! Minato suddenly shouted. This was the first time he had called Choza by his name in front of Naruto. It was evident that he no longer wanted to hide his identity. Hearing Minato call Choza's name, Naruto was instantly stunned. As the son of the fourth Hokage, he was aware that Choza was the head of the Akimichi clan. Moreover, Choza's son, Koji, was Naruto's friend. Naturally, Naruto had met Choza before. Understood. Choza immediately responded. Although Minato Namikaze had only called his name, Choza understood what needed to be done. Without hesitation, Choza's face mask slid off, revealing a face that Naruto found very familiar. The only difference from his impression was that Choza now looked much younger. After swallowing a pill, Choza's body instantly expanded countless times. Now, he was no smaller than Anrokusen's puppet body. After transforming, Choza didn't hesitate for a moment and rushed to Anrokusen, forcefully taking control of Anrokusen's puppet body. However, Anrokusen's strength had increased significantly after the enhancement. In the moment Choza entangled him, Anrokusen began a fierce counterattack. The immense power made Choza sweat profusely. Although Choza temporarily controlled Anrokusen, it was a challenging task. Both Minato Namikaze and Shinobi could see this. Without a word, they exchanged glances and acted promptly. Shinobi controlled numerous parasitic bugs, spreading them across every part of Anrokusen's body. Minato, drawing a triple-pronged kunai, stood ready. They couldn't let Choza's efforts go to waste. Uncle Choza, parasitic bugs, and flying thunder god Kunao. Naruto muttered under his breath, realizing how foolish he had been. Even though Minato Namikaze had explained that this was 20 years ago, Naruto hadn't connected the dots. Ignoring Naruto's somewhat complicated feelings, the parasitic bugs controlled by Shinobi were dying in large numbers. The dragon vein's energy was too overwhelming, making it difficult for ordinary creatures to adapt. Fortunately, Shinobi's strength was formidable. Although many parasitic bugs died, Shinobi's control accelerated their breeding, compensating for the losses. Moreover, there's even some surplus. In just a moment, every corner of Anro-Kuzen's body is covered with parasitic bugs. On the ground, numerous dead parasitic bugs can be seen. If one could see Shinobi's face, they would notice an unusually pale complexion, a consequence of excessive chakra usage. Fortunately, he succeeded. At the cost of many parasitic bugs' lives, he found a unique chakra fluctuation. According to Leaf Village's intelligence and recent communication in the shadows, this should be Anro-Kuzen's vital point. Minato! Shinobi shouted loudly, and under his control, the parasitic bugs instantly formed a guiding mark in the center of Anro-Kuzen's colossal puppet body. Minato Namikaze understood, this was Anro-Kuzen's weakness. In an instant, a triple-pronged kunao shot from Minato's hand. Simultaneously, he also conjured a raised nan in his hand. In a brief moment, the kunao reached the location pointed out by Shinobi. At the same time, Minato's figure disappeared from its original position. Simultaneously, he appeared where the kunao had landed. The ordinary raised nan in his hand had also grown bigger. The enhanced big ball raised nan directly struck Anro-Kuzen's puppet. Instantly, numerous cracks appeared on the massive puppet. At the same time, a slight cracking sound entered everyone's ears. Anro-Kuzen's struggling movements froze, his vital core had been shattered. In other words, he was now marked for death. Even if the dragon vein's power was potent, it couldn't repair a shattered vital core. Anro-Kuzen could sense his original chakra dissipating. Once all his original chakra dissipated, he could move on to the afterlife. Usually, his vital core was constantly moving. So, even if someone knew his weakness was the vital core, no one could threaten him because no one knew where his vital core was located. But today, he encountered the trio from Konoha, who were exceptionally adept at countering him. Especially Minato, whose speed was so fast that Anro-Kuzen couldn't react. Transferring and hiding the vital core was simply impossible. Sensing the approach of death, Anro-Kuzen went completely insane at this moment. He was no longer afraid of the overwhelming power of the dragon vein. Anro-Kuzen began to absorb dragon vein energy in an overload. On top of his terrifying puppet head, a massive amount of energy burst forth. These energies, converging in Anro-Kuzen's puppet's mouth, formed into an energy wave. Like a cannon, it instantly headed towards the dragon vein source at the central altar. At this moment, his only thought was to bury all of them. Since they wouldn't let him live peacefully, then none of them should live. Chapter 161, Ending the Dragon Vein Riot. Everyone, just go and die. Anro-Kuzen's mad voice echoed in the ears of those present. Accompanying Anro-Kuzen's voice was a terrifying surge of energy. This time, Sarah did not seal the dragon vein, so the energy of the dragon vein was still exceptionally active. The active dragon vein energy, triggered by the Anro-Kuzen explosion, instantly led to a shocking riot. No one expected Anro-Kuzen to be this insane. Even Asahi was caught off guard because these memories were too distant for him to recall clearly. Therefore, he didn't have time to stop Anro-Kuzen's desperate move. After all, the dragon vein was exceptionally active now, and any interference would undoubtedly lead to a riot. Moreover, Anro-Kuzen's actions were too swift. If Asahi wanted to intervene, it would inevitably affect the dragon vein. In that case, Asahi would become the one triggering the dragon vein. With his strength, the power and speed of the detonated dragon vein chakra would far surpass Anro-Kuzen's, making it even more challenging to deal with. Ha ha ha! Seeing the horrifying effects of the dragon vein's riot, Anro-Kuzen laughed manically. However, the next moment, his laughter abruptly stopped. Because, under the dragon vein's riot, the closest person, Anro-Kuzen, had been engulfed. His entire body turned into particles, dissipating into the air. Witnessing this scene, everyone's faces turned grim. They had now truly experienced the power of the dragon vein. Under such a terrifying threat, did human strength still have any significance? Even Asahi couldn't help but furrow his brow. He could sense the horrifying pressure underground. This time, since entering the ninja world, it was the most significant threat Asahi had faced. Under the horrifying power of the Dragon Vein's riot, once affected, even Asahi had no assurance of survival. Feeling the intensifying energy deep within the Dragon Vein, everyone knew they had to stop it from getting worse. Although it hadn't reached them yet, allowing the Dragon Vein to continue its riot meant they would all perish here in moments. Escape was impossible because the Dragon Vein's deterioration far exceeded the speed of most people's escape. Thinking about this, Asahi decisively chose to act, suppressing the Dragon Vein's riot. Secret art, forbidden spirit, energy suppression. Asahi's inner voice roared, and then, an abundance of senjutsu chakra erupted from him. The forbidden spirit's range instantly enveloped the area where the Dragon Vein erupted. The forbidden spirit's effects were significant against the rioting energy. As Asahi cast the jutsu, the violent energy of the Dragon Vein calmed down somewhat. Minato and others all looked at Asahi in admiration. Especially Naruto, who had been educated under Asahi since childhood, his admiration for Asahi had reached a new height. Everyone could feel the terror of the Dragon Vein just now. Even Sarah, without chakra, understood that if they hadn't controlled the Dragon Vein just now, everyone would have died here. The existence of Varan might have been questionable. However, all they saw now was Asahi's formidable appearance. The current predicament and the inner struggles Asahi faced were beyond anyone's imagination. They thought it was easy for him? Wrong. Suppressing a riot of such vast energy was far from easy. Asahi now seemed cheerful on the surface, but inside, he was dealing with a whole lot of trouble. At this moment, the chakra within Asahi was crazily surging. A vast amount of chakra was utilized by Asahi to perform the Forbidden Spirit technique. It could be said that this Forbidden Spirit was the second most potent sealing jutsu in the entire ninja world's history. As for the first one, can't you see that giant moon? Over time, the Dragon Vein finally gradually returned to calm. Fortunately, the Dragon Vein had just begun to riot, otherwise, Asahi wouldn't have been able to suppress it. However, even so, it wasn't something Anro-Kyuzen could have predicted. After all, Anro-Kyuzen had personally experienced how terrifying the Dragon Vein could be. Nevertheless, it was good this way, at least Anro-Kyuzen died with a sense of joy. As the Dragon Vein calmed down, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Hush, it's good that you finally know. After everything settled down, Naruto also wanted to inquire with Minato. However, before the words left his mouth, Minato interrupted him directly. At this moment, Minato had taken off his mask, smiling at Naruto. Seeing this familiar face, Naruto chuckled. Without the tragic fate of the original, the current Naruto felt this incident with his old man's younger self was merely amusing. On the other hand, Sarah, seeing the two in this manner, became somewhat curious and observed them for a moment. Then she noticed that Naruto and Minato looked a bit too similar. Realizing something, she also connected the dots with what Naruto said about time travel just now. However, since the parties involved didn't bring it up, she didn't say anything. Meanwhile, footsteps echoed from the entrance. Everyone turned their eyes and saw the residents of Varan arriving, worried about Sarah being alone, so they came to help. Although they seemed a bit late, Sarah's heart was filled with gratitude for their actions. Despite feeling a bit guilty for not contributing much just now, the moment she saw her people's concern, her heart was enveloped in appreciation, and she had no other thoughts. She wasn't a qualified queen, and even though she stepped forward at the last moment, she never imagined she could earn the forgiveness of her people. After all, it was because of her excessive trust in Anro-Kyuzen that Varan came close to extinction. Many surviving citizens had lost family and friends in this 6-year-long calamity. Yet, under these circumstances, the people of Varan were still worried about their queen. How could Sarah not be moved by their acknowledgement? At this moment, the will to protect the people of Varan and ensure their peaceful lives had grown into an immense tree in Sarah's heart. Chapter 162, Sealing Memories. Of course, Asahi didn't care about all this. His current focus was entirely on the leading figures. Or, more precisely, it was on Yamato, who was currently with Shisui, Kakashi, and others. As for Yamato, Asahi could easily recognize him. What intrigued Asahi now was Yamato's backstory. Was he still, like in the original, a product of Orochimaru's human experiments? Certainly, Yamato also noticed Asahi at the first opportunity. Regarding Asahi, Yamato only gave a complex look without taking any action. Captain Yamato. At the moment Yamato appeared, Naruto exclaimed in surprise. He didn't expect Yamato to be here. Minato looked at this person referred to as the captain by Naruto with some curiosity. Naruto's strength was already formidable, so the person he called captain must have exceptional qualities. Naruto, who is this? Minato curiously asked, wanting to know Yamato's identity. Before Naruto could answer, Yamato quickly stepped forward and bowed to Minato, saying, "Hello Lord Namikaze. My name is Yamato, a Jonin, and currently Naruto's captain." Yamato was aware of the current situation and, as a mature ninja, did not disclose Minato's future identity. Yes, don't be fooled by Captain Yamato's unassuming appearance. He can use wood release, and he's very powerful. Naruto quickly interjected, paying no attention to Yamato's slightly darkened face. Unassuming appearance? Yamato thought his looks were quite handsome. Would release. It seems Orochimaru is still conducting human experiments even with the butterfly effect caused by my presence. Upon hearing Naruto's words, Asahi's mind instantly flashed with this thought. Meanwhile, Kakashi Hatake, who was on the side, heard Naruto's words and sneered. He didn't know Naruto's identity, nor did he want to know. For him, anyone he didn't know was a stranger. Therefore, Kakashi Hatake directly spoke, saying, "Powerful? Someone who can't even complete a mission and faints in the desert. How strong can he be? This utterly useless appearance. If he wasn't wearing the Leaf Village headband, I wouldn't even want to save him. Also, Minato-sensei, be careful. His identity is still suspicious. In the beginning, he acted very strangely and has been hiding something." That's right, Kakashi still didn't know Yamato's specific identity. After all, Kakashi was still young, and while his strength was good, his experience was too limited. He didn't know that the timeline had already gone awry. Because of his young age, Kakashi still couldn't understand the situation by analyzing the subtle clues around him. However, Yamato, being older, quickly deduced the external environment he was in by analyzing the subtle clues around him. Yet, he was also concerned about the potential impact on the future, so he didn't tell Kakashi the specific situation, just mentioning that he came here for a mission. Everything else, Yamato kept hidden. That was also the reason Kakashi doubted him. Indeed, just as rumored, Kakashi-senpai were not cute at all when they were young. Hearing Kakashi's words, Yamato muttered softly. His voice was low and unclear. So, except for Asahi, no one in the room heard Yamato's words clearly. However, Asahi wouldn't repeat Yamato's words, so, in essence, no one heard what Yamato said. Kakashi cast a sidelong glance at Yamato. Indeed, this man was strange and worth being wary of. Meanwhile, Minato, who also heard Kakashi's words, furrowed his brows with a somewhat heavy heart. The suicide of Sakumo had a significant impact on Kakashi. It seemed that there would be more opportunities in the future to help Kakashi change. Thinking like this, Minato Namikaze knew that now wasn't the time to discuss this. Changing Kakashi couldn't be rushed, it was a gradual process. Moreover, there were 2 more visitors from the future here. This matter needed to be resolved quickly. So, Minato decided to put aside the issue of changing Kakashi's personality for now. It's okay. Yamato's identity is fine, he is indeed a ninja from Konoha, just not from this era. Minato explained to Kakashi, which surprised Yamato. No need to conceal information. Lord Namikaze found a solution. Of course, Kakashi was still a bit puzzled. He asked, "Not from this era? What does that mean?" "This doesn't matter, you'll forget about it soon anyway." Faced with Kakashi's question, Minato didn't answer directly, he just said so. Hearing this, Kakashi became more confused. But considering Minato Namikaze's words earlier, he fell silent and didn't ask the questions in his mind. But Naruto didn't care about all that. Where there was confusion, there needed to be answers. So, he directly asked, "Forget it soon? What does that mean?" Minato glanced at Naruto and explained. According to Lord Asahi's words, after sealing the dragon veins, time and space will return to normal, and you will be able to return to the future. However, to avoid affecting the development of historical events, we need to seal our memories. Minato explained Naruto's question without explaining it to Kakashi, not out of favoritism. In all honesty, Minato had spent much more time with Kakashi than Naruto by now. And he was quite satisfied and fond of Kakashi as his disciple. The reason Minato explained was mainly that he was going to seal their memories soon, and it was better to let everyone know the situation. Seal memories? Why would you do that? These meaningful experiences should be kept in our minds. Naruto complained upon hearing Minato's explanation. However, he also understood that Minato was right. So, despite grumbling, he reluctantly accepted it. Minato didn't mind Naruto's complaint. After speaking, he directly turned to Asahi and said, "This time, I'll trouble you, Lord Asahi." Of course, Minato, being proficient in sealing techniques, could do this himself. However, to seal Asahi's memories, even if Asahi agreed, Minato didn't dare to do it. Aside from the potential backlash, the nature of this matter itself would be hard for him to handle if Kushina knew. He hadn't forgotten how much respect and admiration Kushina had for Asahi. If she found out that he, her teacher, had done something so disrespectful to her master, even if Asahi agreed, Minato Namikaze would probably have to kneel and apologize. Ah! Before everyone can continue, a loud scream sound. Chapter 163, Timeline Recover. The sudden scream left everyone stunned. They dumbfoundedly watched Yamato, who was smiling foolishly and rubbing his fists, and Kakashi, who was holding his head, not understanding what had just happened. Everything was fine a moment ago, so why did they suddenly start fighting? Especially Naruto, who was even more confused. One was his former Jounin instructor, well, he was still child. The other was his current team captain. He could be quite puzzled right now, so he looked at Yamato and asked, Captain Yamato, what are you doing? Yeah, you jerk. Why did you suddenly hit me? Kakashi also shouted angrily. Yamato's punch from earlier was genuinely heavy, even after some time had passed, Kakashi's head was still buzzing. Facing Naruto's question and Kakashi's anger, Yamato just grinned and explained. Back then, Senpai used to bully me a lot and I couldn't beat him. Now that I finally have the chance, I naturally want to satisfy my wish. Since memories are going to be sealed, I must cherish the opportunity now. Yamato's words made Kakashi show a big sweat drop. But Naruto was different from Kakashi. Upon hearing Yamato's words, a delighted expression immediately appeared on Naruto's face. Yet, memories would be sealed, so he seemed to be able to act recklessly for once. Thinking about it, a slightly sinister smile appeared on Naruto's face. After all, Shisui and Yujito weren't just Asahi's disciples. They were also the masters of that guy, Sasuke. Originally, defeating these old ninja was one of Naruto's dreams. If that guy found out that his masters were severely bullied by him, his expression would surely be interesting. Thinking about this, Naruto looked at Shisui and Yujito, who were standing beside Kakashi, and the smile on his face became even more pronounced. Seeing Naruto like this, Shisui and Yujito couldn't help feeling uneasy. What is this guy planning to do? Without waiting for the two to react, Naruto swiftly appeared in front of them. Although Shisui and Yujito were both outstanding geniuses, their age was too young, so there was still some distance in strength compared to Naruto. Moreover, Naruto's talent was also excellent. So, while Shisui and Yujito were inwardly thought that something was wrong, Naruto directly threw a punch at Shisui's head, causing him to rub his head in pain. As for Yujito, she barely dodged Naruto's attack with her speed advantage. Unfortunately, Naruto was now in a frenzy and immediately followed up. Although Yujito's speed was fast, after a few moves, Naruto caught her off guard and landed a punch on her head. After succeeding, Naruto didn't push it further and immediately appeared next to Yamato. The two mischief makers exchanged a glance and both grinned. As for the three who were bullied, they could only look at Naruto and Yamato with resentment. If they could, they would definitely repay this humiliation. Regarding the antics of these younger individuals, Asahi paid them no mind. However, he couldn't help but find it amusing as he watched Naruto and Yamato. A certain idea had already formed in his mind, and he was curious to see how Naruto and Yamato would react to it. Cough, cough. I will seal your memories. Minato, are you ready to seal the dragon vein? By the way, Naruto, what time and date did you come here from future? Asahi cleared his throat and addressed everyone. Hey? I arrived in July 31st, 66th year of Konoha. The time is exactly the same when I arrive here. Although Naruto was not sure about Asahi's intentions, he answered honestly. Asahi calculated in his mind and understood what ingredients he needed to add to the sealing jutsu. Upon hearing Asahi speak, Minato immediately became serious. He responded and walked to the center of the altar, starting to perform the sealing jutsu. Observing this, Asahi also began to channel his chakra. As the dragon vein was sealed, numerous sealing runes were released from Asahi's palms. Naruto, take care! Suddenly, Sarah shouted loudly to Naruto. She bid farewell to the person who inspired her. You too, Sarah. Believe that even without our help, you will become a qualified queen, Naruto shouted back with a smile, and at that moment, the sadness of parting struck. Although they had only spent half a day together, the experiences they shared were enough to be unforgettable. As Naruto's voice fell, the sealing runes surging from Asahi's palms started to twist and slowly climbed up the bodies of everyone. Watching the sealing runes approach his feet, Naruto waved to Minato and said, "Goodbye, Dad. Don't work too hard in the future. Remember to spend more time with Mom and me." Hearing Naruto's words, Minato was momentarily stunned, then showed a gentle smile. "Sure, I'll do my best." At this moment, Kakashi, who was deep in thought, glanced at Naruto. "That's teacher's child, hey." However, an unexpected development occurred. Asahi's sealing jutsu, even though he himself was affected by it, suddenly deviated when the runes were about to reach their feet. Naruto looked at Yamato in surprise and found that he was in the same situation. In that instant, Naruto and Yamato exchanged many glances, but there was no conclusion. In the end, they both turned their gazes to Asahi. Could it be that Asahi made a mistake in his operation? However, faced with their puzzled looks, Asahi just smiled, shook his head slightly. His smile seemed to have a slightly mischievous meaning. Could Asahi make a mistake in his operation? That was naturally impossible. Asahi deliberately omitted the two of them, considering they were about to return to the future. What impact could they have? The only ones who could have an impact were the people from this era. Therefore, as long as he sealed the memories of these people, it would be sufficient. As for the seal on himself, it was naturally effective. Asahi also sealed most of his own memories from this period. After all, the future was only truly exciting when it was filled with unknowns. However, he still left a bit of memory. After all, as the master of his disciples, he still needed to care about their emotional issues. Of course, the reason Asahi showed that kind of mischievous-like smile was because he added some ingredients to the sealing jutsu. T/N, a bit of spoiler, Asahi only seal the memory of people except Naruto and Yamato. The memory seal that Asahi use has a time limit, which is why he asked Naruto and Yamato the specific time. Chapter 164, Despair. Using the time Naruto mentioned, Asahi easily calculated the time difference from that moment. Therefore, he imposed a time limit on the sealing jutsu. As soon as the time passed, the sealing jutsu would automatically release. Confident that the time he set was work, it meant that even if the sealing jutsu were released, it wouldn't affect the future. Asahi believed that when Naruto and Yamato returned to the future, they would be in for a surprise, wouldn't they? Seeing Asahi's smile, both Naruto and Yamato had a bad feeling. They opened their mouths to say something, but it was already too late. In the moment Naruto and Yamato were about to speak, they felt everything blur before them. It seemed like a long time had passed, yet it also felt like an instant. Konoha 66th years. When the two regained their senses, they found themselves surrounded by the familiar broken walls and endless desert. Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha were rushing towards them. "Captain Yamato, Naruto, are you guys okay?" Sakura anxiously inquired, and even Sasuke, without his original coldness, looked at Naruto and Yamato with concern. The incident just now, where the two were engulfed by the energy of the dragon vein, had startled them. Of course, Sasuke would never admit to it. After all, he was a cold and proud, tsundere, person, how could he show such concern? Hearing Sakura's worried words, Naruto and Yamato quickly reassured her. Then, they exchanged glances, confirming through eye contact and traces on their clothes that what had just happened was indeed real and not a dream. Since it wasn't a dream, why did they still have their memories? Weren't their memories supposed to be sealed? Thinking about it, they both shook in horror. At this moment, even Naruto's brain was frantically working. A bad guess appeared in their minds. At this moment, Naruto and Yamato both had somewhat stiff expressions. It can't be, right? It shouldn't be. They glanced at each other, speaking with bitter smiles. They thought they were just fooling around a bit, and there would be no consequences. They were truly naive, knowing that Asahi had a mischievous side and loved to play tricks. Why did they foolishly walk into the trap? At this moment, Sakura and Sasuke, both looking confused, watched Naruto and Yamato. Had their minds gone haywire? Why couldn't they understand a word they were saying? But it didn't matter, after all, the two of them were never quite normal. Glancing around, Sakura asked in confusion, "Hey, Captain Yamato, Naruto, where's Mukid?" "Mukid is dead." Naruto and Yamato both replied somewhat listlessly. Now, Mukid/Anrokuzen, and others didn't matter. What they cared about now was whether they could safely return to the village. Thinking about this, the two directly lowered their heads and walked towards Konoha dejectedly. Dead? What about the bodies? Hearing the two's words and witnessing their strange behavior, Sakura looked utterly bewildered. Even Sasuke, with a stoic face, showed a puzzled expression. Although the two were a bit abnormal on regular days, today was just too strange. Seeing the two walk further away, Sakura and Sasuke exchanged glances and quickly followed. "Hey, Naruto, what's going on with you and Captain Yamato?" After catching up, Sakura and Sasuke couldn't help but ask. Naruto, with a mournful face, slowly began to explain. Meanwhile, back in Konoha, Minato, Shisui, Yujito, and Kakashi, among others, suddenly felt a shiver down their spines. Then, a rush of buried memories surfaced, changing the expressions on their faces. Among them, Shisui, Yujito, and Kakashi had the ugliest expressions. At the same moment, they all looked towards the direction of Land of Wind. If everything was correct, their targets for revenge should be there. Of course, Minato's expression was also quite colorful. Although his son might get a beating, he just chuckled at his son misfortuned. As time passed, Team Yamato was approaching the range of Konoha. At this point, the four-person team had clearly divided into two groups, Naruto and Yamato, Sakura and Sasuke. By now, Sakura and Sasuke had also learned about what had happened. Comparing the situation, Sasuke, as a disciple of Shisui, wanted to beat up Naruto to help his mentor vent his anger. However, Sasuke felt more sympathy towards Naruto. Of course, Sakura felt the same way. Why did they have to provoke them for no reason? Moreover, provoking two people at once. Even Yamato, despite also offending Kakashi, seemed better off. Getting beaten up by one person was always better than getting beaten up by two. Although Sakura and Sasuke sympathized with Naruto and Yamato, asking them for help was impossible. Sakura and Sasuke have already distanced themselves from the two troublemakers. In case they get involved and implicated, that would be so unjust. Naruto and Yamato, in their hearts, were vehemently complaining and condemning Sasuke and Sakura. These two, they were just too ungrateful. So what if they offended these top figures in Konoha? Why be so afraid? However, regardless of what Naruto and Yamato thought, they were about to reach Konoha. As the distance closed in, Naruto and Yamato's hearts began to beat wildly. Finally, they stepped into the gates of Konoha. To their relief, it seemed like Shisui, Yujito, and Kakashi hadn't come to deal with them. Could it be that they were overly paranoid? Thinking of this, Naruto and Yamato's hearts instantly eased. After all, even though Asahi had a bit of a mischievous side and liked to play tricks, he wouldn't harm his own apprentices. Comforting themselves in their hearts, Naruto and Yamato were ready to report for their mission. However, before they could take a few steps, they heard a distant voice behind them. "Naruto and Yamato, where are you guys going again?" At the sound of the voice, Naruto and Yamato's expressions stiffened. They were all too familiar with this voice. Turning around stiffly, Naruto, with his facial muscles frozen, said, "Hehe, Master Shisui. Your speed is still as fast as ever." Chapter 165, Epilogue, The Rerun. Fast? I remember I walk very slow. Adult Shisui looked expressionless as he spoke to Naruto. Just as Shisui finished speaking, two more figures appeared before everyone. Facing the emotionless of the three people, Yamato and Naruto both swallowed hard. "Naruto, we feel like you've been slacking off lately. As elders, we have a responsibility to give you special training." Both Shisui and Yujito looked at Naruto with a smile that didn't reach their eyes. Naruto's expression instantly turned sour upon hearing Shisui and Yujito's words. What special training nonsense, wasn't it just for revenge? No need for that, Naruto weakly said, attempting to avoid trouble. Unfortunately, Shisui and Yujito paid no attention to his words and directly dragged him away. As they left, Shisui and Yujito turned back, grinned at Yamato, and said, "And you, Yamato, you've been slacking off too. After Kakashi finishes discussing the path of life with you, we'll come to find you too." Having said that, without giving Yamato a chance to retort, they directly took Naruto away. If it weren't for Yamato's reminders and demonstrations, would they have been bullied by this little brat Naruto? At this moment, Yamato felt utterly helpless. He initially thought his situation was better than Naruto's since he only offended Kakashi, but Naruto managed to offend both Uchiha Shisui and Yujito. How did he inexplicably offend all three? However, it wasn't the time to consider this now, it was better to handle Kakashi first. So, Yamato forcefully suppressed the immense despair in his heart, forced a smile, and looked at Kakashi who just stood there. He opened his mouth, wanting to say some flattering words. Unfortunately, Kakashi seemed to have anticipated it all, not giving him a chance to speak. "Yamato, as a senior, I feel I should take a good look at your progress. Let's go. Let me see how much you've grown." Kakashi squinted his eyes, and his face under the mask was smiling. But seeing Kakashi's smile, Yamato couldn't help but shiver. The words of pleading hadn't even left his mouth, and he was already at a loss. Sakura and Sasuke, who were still in place, looked at Naruto and Yamato being taken away, unable to help but pray for them. The figures of Naruto and Yamato seemed so pitiful from behind. Even though everything seemed harmonious just now, the two who were familiar with Shisui, Yujito, and Kakashi could sense the strange atmosphere. Naruto and Yamato were beyond saving, and they shouldn't get involved. The situation had developed to this point, and Sakura and Sasuke exchanged a glance. A hint of sympathy flashed in their eyes, and then the two went their separate ways, each minding their own business. In the end, Naruto and Yamato received their well-deserved retribution. Both of them, on their way to submit the mission, had swollen and bruised faces, with Yamato suffering the most. Not only did he endure 2 beatings, but Kakashi also extorted from him a renowned 18-plus novel, Ika Ika authored by the infamous Jiraiya, as a compensation gift. Kakashi couldn't conceal the smile on his face. This particular edition was exceptionally precious, and even Kakashi, who had queued for 3 days, couldn't get a copy. However, for Yamato, who had lost his spiritual solace, it was evident that his heart bled a little. Current timeline. As Naruto and Yamato departed, Asahi and others snapped back to reality. Asahi's proficiency in sealing jutsu had reached its peak, especially evident in the precise control during the large-scale use of sealing techniques. At this point, only the memories related to Naruto and Yamato were sealed. However, because most of the memories from today were sealed, although there were some fragmented memories, they were incomplete. What in the world happened? Faced with this situation, Sarah, as the queen of the Riran, couldn't help but ask. She felt as if she had just parted with an important friend. In response to Sarah's inquiry, everyone calmly glanced at her but didn't provide an answer. At this moment, the people of the Riran, although lacking memories related to Naruto, didn't seem to be affected much. In their memories, scenes involving Naruto and Yamato are all deleted. The remaining memories in their minds were all about Sarah's transformation and her selfless act of saving them from the fire. Moreover, at the critical moment, she stood up without regard for her safety to defeat the big boss, Anrokuzen. So, at this moment, everyone excitedly surrounded her. "Queen Sarah, are you okay?" "Yeah, we arrived late. Did you get hurt?" "Don't worry, everyone. I'm fine." After hearing everyone's concerns, Sarah quickly waved her hands. She seemed somewhat unaccustomed to the words of care exchanged by everyone. However, she didn't dislike this situation. On the contrary, hearing these words of concern, her heart was filled with contentment and gratitude. Even though she had lost many memories, her transformation had already taken root in her heart. So, even if she couldn't recall many things, her heart, which was determined to protect everyone, remained unchanged. Witnessing all of this, Asahi and Minato exchanged a glance. Minato was a person with a strong ninja code, so Asahi had left in his mind the memory of him requesting to seal everyone's memories. Currently, Minato and Asahi were the only ones among those present who knew some of the inside story. With this small clue, if Minato investigated further, with his talent, there was a possibility he could break the seal in advance and regain the memories. However, the outcome was already clear, and Asahi hadn't misjudged Minato. Minato didn't delve deeper into the matter. In his view, since both he and Asahi had this idea and had acted on it, there must be a reason for it. Chapter 166, Separation. With Asahi's request, Sakumo, Shisui, Yujito, and Kakashi naturally wouldn't delve into this matter. However, Choza and Shibi weren't inclined to simply follow Asahi's words. At this moment, Minato's role as the team leader came in handy. At Minato's request, the two quickly buried this matter deep in their hearts. Believing that soon enough, this matter would fade away among the countless missions that everyone undertook. Slowly, it would turn into a trivial story told during casual conversations over drinks. After half a day, the survivors of Iran, with the resources they could take, set out to find a new place to live. Because this place had been destroyed too much, and with only a few of them remaining, it was impossible to restore Iran to its original state. Moreover, while this was their homeland, it was also a place that brought back painful memories. So, rather than living here and keeping their hearts tangled, they preferred to move to a new place. This was the unanimous will of all the survivors of Iran. Therefore, at this moment, what Asahi and others saw was the survivors of Iran, led by Sarah, migrating towards the nearest oasis. Of course, Asahi had informed them about this oasis. The size of this oasis completely met the needs of the survivors of Lulan for their future life and development. In return for Asahi's help, after Asahi proposed to use the dragon veins for training, Sarah also agreed. Although the example of Anro Kyuzan was there, Sarah didn't think there was anything else in Iran that Asahi should be wary of. Moreover, based on the impression of the people of Iran, Asahi was someone very trustworthy. Of course, helping Iran and gaining the right to use the dragon veins was also Asahi's purpose. Asahi didn't want to be disturbed by Sarah and others while practicing. As for directly seizing the dragon veins like Anro Kyuzan, Asahi wasn't that shameless. Lord Asahi, we'll take our leave back to Konoha. Watching the gradually moving figures of the survivors of Iran, Minato said goodbye to Asahi. Just wait a moment, help me with something. Asahi waved his hand, saying to Minato. Minato Namikaze was momentarily stunned but quickly said, Lord Asahi, please speak. Help me bring Shisui back to Konoha. At his current strength and my current situation, he can barely go out for training. Asahi said he planned to let his disciples return to their villages. He was going to enter a state of training next time, and he didn't know how much time it would take. Asahi didn't want Shisui and Yujito to stay by his side, which would greatly affect their growth. However, Shisui was not aware of Asahi's plan. Hearing Asahi suddenly say he wanted to send him back to the village, his first reaction wasn't joy. Although this past year, he missed the village a lot. But now, he wanted to stay by Asahi's side even more. Because wherever Asahi was, he felt a sense of home. So, upon hearing Asahi's words, Shisui felt a little anxious. Master, are you? Shisui's voice trembled a bit, and there was no trace of the maturity he had when he first met Asahi. In the end, Shisui was just a child of 6 years old. In front of this elder Asahi, Shisui could put away the disguise in his heart. Hearing Shisui's slightly trembling voice, Asahi also felt a bit emotional for a moment. Although they've been through a lot, farewells are always a bit sentimental, especially when it comes to the junior disciples who have been together day and night. Shisui, I'm going into training period. I'm going to devote myself entirely, and I don't know how long it will last. So, I don't have the energy to guide your training. But you guys are in the golden age of growth. It would be a shame to waste it. So, go back and grow well. You already know the path of your training, you can only grow faster by experiencing more. Before Shisui could finish speaking, Asahi interrupted him directly. Asahi wasn't addressing only Shisui, it was also directed at Yujito beside him. After stating the reasons, Asahi turned to Sakumo and said, Byako, I'll trouble you to escort Yujito back. Yes, clan head. I'll come back as soon as possible to guard you. Because Kakashi was still present, Sakumo lowered his voice. Asahi lightly nodded at this without saying much. Yujito, hearing Asahi's words, revealed a trace of reluctance on his face. Even though it had only been about half a year since he had followed Asahi. In Yujito's heart, Asahi's weight was no less than in Shisui's heart. Both regarded Asahi as their most important person. However, despite the reluctance, the two still honestly agreed. They knew that Asahi's decisions were for their good. They didn't want to disappoint Asahi, so they accepted this result in their hearts. They just hoped that the next time they met, their strength would have improved, and they could earn Asahi's approval. If there was still such a thing, they hoped to become strong enough, like Byakko, to become guardian of Asahi. Seeing everyone fall into silence, Minato finally had the chance to speak. Rest assured, Lord Asahi. Shisui is a genius from Konoha, and it's my duty to escort him back to the village. Minato's words broke the awkward atmosphere at this moment. After briefly explaining a few things, Asahi turned and walked toward the altar at the source of the dragon veins. Watching Asahi disappear into the tower, Shisui and Yujito each set off on the road back to the village with their reluctance. When everyone had left, and only Asahi remained in the entire Raran, Asahi quietly sat down on the altar at the source of the dragon veins. Easily opening a gap in Minato's sealing technique, the unique natural energy of the dragon veins began to slowly emerge. Asahi sat in meditation, feeling the flowing dragon vein energy around him, silently contemplating. As time passed, Asahi gradually understood the characteristics of the dragon vein energy. Despite having the support of secret art techniques, dragon vein energy had already undergone a qualitative change. So, Asahi decided to proceed cautiously and not directly absorb the dragon vein's energy. With his exceptionally strong chakra control, Asahi began the process of diluting the dragon vein energy while simultaneously attempting to absorb the diluted dragon vein energy. Chapter 167, Asahi and Sakumo Half-Year Training Progress. Fortunately, Asahi handled it well because as soon as he began absorbing it, he realized that the transformed natural energy after the qualitative change was not as simple as just increasing in quantity. However, right after absorption, Asahi felt a slight tingling sensation. Even though it was natural energy, Asahi was aware that this discomfort was due to his level not yet reaching this point, and his body couldn't adapt to higher level energy instantly. Asahi was sure that if he had been reckless, despite the safeguard of secret art techniques, it would have been very painful. Time flew by, and several days passed. During this period, Asahi spent most of his time in meditation, only taking breaks for essential activities. However, the difficulty of the breakthrough surpassed his expectations. In these days, Asahi's body had just begun to adapt to the natural energy of the dragon veins. He was well aware that he still had a long way to go before being able to fully utilize the energy of the dragon veins for his breakthrough. However, Asahi's gains during these days weren't limited to his physical adaptation to the dragon vein energy. His most significant insight during this period was understanding the nature of the dragon veins. Throughout his meditation, Asahi constantly observed the changes in the dragon's veins. He discovered that the energy of the dragon veins was not infinite. In one instance where he extracted a large amount of dragon vein energy during his investigation into its characteristics, Asahi noticed a momentary decrease in the energy. With full focus on the dragon veins and no external disturbances, he easily sensed this brief reduction. Although it quickly replenished itself, there was indeed a slight weakening. Asahi was certain that it wasn't his imagination. To confirm, he once again extracted a substantial amount of dragon vein energy. This time, Asahi devoted 100% of his attention to observing the dragon veins. He confirmed that the energy of the dragon veins did decrease momentarily. However, due to the immense total quantity of dragon vein energy and its self-recovery rate far exceeding its consumption, it was challenging for an average person to notice that dragon veins were not truly an infinite energy source. Gained with this newfound knowledge, Asahi's interest in the dragon veins deepened. In the following days, he dedicated all his remaining energy to observing and analyzing the characteristics of the dragon veins. Finally, his efforts paid off. In this period of training, Asahi successfully detected a trace of a clue. He discovered that when he depleted the energy of the dragon veins, the external natural energy quickly condensed, creating nature-transformed dragon vein energy that replenished the dragon veins. This revelation greatly excited Asahi. Although Asahi couldn't immediately apply this discovery, it wouldn't be long before it could accelerate his training. After confirming the phenomenon through several attempts, Asahi took a deep breath, awake from his meditative state. His mind was now contemplating the true nature of the dragon veins and why such a seemingly anomalous existence existed in the shinobi world. After pondering for a while, Asahi still couldn't figure it out. Nevertheless, he had a rough speculation. In many novels in his previous life, there often appeared something known as the world origin, the highest and core energy of that world. Asahi guessed that this so-called dragon vein was, in fact, the world's origin energy of the shinobi world. Blessed by the entire shinobi world, there was no other way to explain the principles behind this thing's existence. However, what Asahi didn't know was that his speculation was indeed correct. The dragon veins could be considered the world origin energy of the Shinobi world, or rather, it used to be where the original god tree was located. After clearing his mind of these random thoughts, Asahi re-entered the state of training. Regardless of what the dragon veins were, they had nothing to do with his current progress. His training was currently progressing at an unexpectedly slow pace. He didn't even have the qualifications to brazenly utilize the dragon veins for training, so why bother with such matters? However, this time, his training didn't last for many days. That's because Sakumo, who had escorted Yujito back to the village, had returned. Sakumo's return briefly snapped Asahi out of his meditative state. After a brief inquiry, Asahi nodded and returned to his training. Observing this, Sakumo didn't disturb Asahi, silently sitting not far away, both protecting and training. This period of training spanned half a year. As the year 46 of Konoha passed, the following year, 47, brought about an increasingly dire situation in the Shinobi world. The number of ninja troops stationed at the borders of each major nation continued to increase. The war between the Land of Earth and the Land of Lightning also intensified. Although the Land of Earth didn't succeed after a sneak attack, the situation remained tense. However, both sides had been provoked, and now neither was giving an inch. There were also continuous frictions among Konoha and the various ninja villages, but they hadn't escalated into full-blown conflicts yet. However, the turmoil in the ninja world had little impact on Asahi and Sakumo, who were in Raran. Tsunagakuer, the weakest village of the 5 great villages, remained Indiana a defensive state, so the two of them were undisturbed. Over the past half year, their daily routine consisted of one thing: training, training, and more training. Fortunately, the refugees from Raran lived near an oasis, and with their support, Asahi and Sakumo's basic needs were not affected. Otherwise, the supplies sealed by Asahi would not have been sufficient for the past half year. Both Asahi and Sakumo's progress, however, were remarkable. Sakumo recently succeeded in mastering Sage Mode, and Asahi, having fully adapted to the Dragon Veins energy, could now begin the next stage of his training by utilizing the Dragon Veins. However, despite the importance of training, Asahi had temporarily set it aside. His current mission was to assist Sakumo in finding a suitable weapon. Now that Hitaki Sakumo had attained Sage Mode, he needed to continue his training, but as a master of Kenjutsu, sword techniques, he required a suitable blade for practice. Due to the intense focus on mastering Sage Mode, Sakumo had been unable to spare time for sword training. Now, with his attention turned towards obtaining a suitable weapon, Asahi was determined to support Hitaki Sakumo in this quest. Chapter 168, Searching for Sword. Now, for Sakumo to fully unleash his current strength, he needed to integrate and develop his existing sword skills into a sword more suited to his current state. Therefore, a strong and special sword was indispensable. Sakumo, you can't use an ordinary sword with your current strength and skill. How about I accompany you to find a legendary weapon as your new weapon? Hence, Asahi directly offered to help Sakumo find a legendary sword as his weapon. Thank you, Master. Sakumo did not refuse. After a moment's hesitation, he agreed. He knew he genuinely needed a sword for his training. Of course, with his strength, even an ordinary sword could unleash formidable power. However, who wouldn't want a legendary weapon? For a swordsman, a good sword was crucial. Its sturdiness alone would delight any swordsman. In that case, let's set out. Seeing Sakumo's agreement, Asahi stood up, and dusted off his clothes, and Sakumo followed suit. He didn't ask where they were going, less talk, more thought was his current approach. Asahi stretched his neck, moved his body a bit, and then led Sakumo out of the desert. At this moment, Sakumo was touched. He hadn't provided much help to Asahi, yet Asahi treated him so kindly. It was indeed rare to find someone who truly understood him, like finding a needle in a haystack. He must somehow repay Asahi's kindness. Of course, what Sakumo didn't know was that Asahi's assistance this time had a reason he wouldn't admit out loud. The truth was, that training for half a year had become too oppressive and dull for Asahi. He wanted to go out and change the environment to relax. Once they left the desert region of the Land of Wind, Asahi slowed down. They took their time walking, and after nearly half a month, the two of them crossed a small country. Of course, it wasn't that Asahi intentionally wanted to drag out the time. The main reason was that Asahi didn't know where the Kusanagi clan was. Although he was well versed in major events in the ninja world, something like the Kusanagi sword which wasn't extensively mentioned in the original work, was beyond his knowledge. If it weren't for the Kusanagi sword being so famous in the world of Naruto, Asahi wouldn't have known about this clan. Yes, Asahi's goal for this trip was the Kusanagi sword. If you ask what the most famous sword in the world of Naruto is, Asahi can confidently tell that is the Kusanagi sword. Whether it's the sword of Kusanagi, Orochimaru, the sword of Kusanagi, Sasuke, or even Itachi's sword of Totsuka, they all belong to the Kusanagi sword. As for the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist and their 7 swords, Asahi couldn't help but sneer. Except for the Kyobikuriba Sho, which could be considered a proper sword, the rest were just bizarre and peculiar. However, Asahi couldn't figure out how the Kusanagi clan, capable of creating the Kusanagi sword, ended up in such a miserable state. In theory, even if such a clan couldn't match the prominent clans in the ninja world, they should still be able to hold their own against some of the secretive jutsu families. But no, they were in a sorry state. A prestigious group like the one that created the Kusanagi sword had surprisingly no reputation in the ninja world. Asahi couldn't fathom how the Kusanagi clan managed to get into such a predicament. The most puzzling thing for him was that the Kusanagi clan, which could produce the Kusanagi sword, had no fame in the ninja world. He wondered if their ancestors who crafted the Kusanagi sword would be disappointed if they knew about this situation. What's more, the Kusanagi clan's struggle made things difficult for Asahi. He had to painstakingly sense every area just to find the Kusanagi clan. Otherwise, Asahi wouldn't be moving so slowly, right? Luckily, Asahi's luck was not bad. After leaving the Land of Wind, in the country where Kyusagakure is located, Asahi discovered the so-called Kusanagi clan. Of course, it wasn't because Asahi had extraordinary discernment. The current Kusanagi clan didn't have a single ninja. The entire group lived in a remote mountainous area like an ordinary village. Normally, Asahi wouldn't easily notice their differences. Perhaps he would have just glanced over them. After all, who would have expected that the current Kusanagi clan, possessing only 2 Kusanagi swords, was just an ordinary village of common people? It can only be said that the Kusanagi clan had concealed themselves too well. According to the average person's logic, a family capable of safeguarding such a treasure should be quite formidable. After all, a weak family possessing such a valuable item would have no place to hide if even a little rumor got out. Unfortunately, just when everyone thought so, the Kusanagi clan went against the mainstream and went their way, directly contradicting the common beliefs. However, it did work wonders, and the Kusanagi clan has successfully safeguarded the remaining 2 Kusanagi swords to this day. This time, it can only be said that Asahi's luck was extraordinary. Because in this place, he sensed a familiar chakra, that of Orochimaru. It must be said that Asahi and Orochimaru are quite fated to encounter each other. How many times has it been now? Following the protagonist's law, could it be that Orochimaru is the protagonist of this period in the ninja world? Ahem, getting off track here. Orochimaru's appearance piqued Asahi's curiosity, especially given the chaotic situation in the ninja world. Orochimaru, a top force in Konoha, neither guards the village nor defends the front lines. What was he doing in this village of ordinary people? Out of curiosity, Asahi carefully surveyed the area. This careful sensing led Asahi to discover something interesting. Although they lacked chakra, the residents of this village were noticeably different from ordinary people. Even though they had no chakra, these villagers had a distinctive sharp aura in their bodies, a quality that had fused with their flesh and blood. Although still weak, it undeniably existed. With this revelation, suspicion arose in Asahi's mind. Coupled with Orochimaru's presence, Asahi's intuition told him that these were likely the so-called Kusanagi clan members. After all, in the original story, Orochimaru was the owner of the Kusanagi sword, even though it didn't explain how he obtained it. However, who needs an explanation? Any sensible person would know how to get one. So, with this thought, Asahi directly headed towards Orochimaru, bringing Sakumo with him. At this moment, Orochimaru was tensed, scanning his surroundings. As Asahi didn't conceal his sensing abilities and openly approached, Orochimaru easily detected someone observing him. Orochimaru's power had increased rapidly recently, but it wasn't enough. Compared to Asahi's previous state, there was still a large gap. Not to mention, now that Asahi had spent over half a year practicing with the help of the Dragon Vein, his strength was even more terrifying than before. Chapter 169, Orochimaru Purpose. So, Orochimaru only sensed that someone was observing him, but he couldn't be certain of who or where. In this situation, Orochimaru became alert, although he wasn't afraid. He believed in his strength, even if high-level ninjas from other villages were sent to besiege him, he could escape. Suddenly, Orochimaru's ears twitched. He heard 2 faint footsteps. As the footsteps approached, Orochimaru instantly turned around, his gaze fixed on the direction of the approaching steps. With the appearance of Asahi, Orochimaru's inner tension relaxed momentarily. At least for now, Asahi wasn't his enemy. "Oh, it's Lord Asahi. What a coincidence to meet you here." A slight smile appeared on Orochimaru's face as he respectfully spoke to Asahi. After saying this, Orochimaru casually glanced at Sakumo, who was following behind Asahi. Is this the Byakko mentioned by Shisui? People from Ogami clan are truly unfathomable. Orochimaru thought with a slight surprise. With just a glance, he felt tremendous pressure emanating from Sakumo. In response to Orochimaru's greeting, Asahi nodded with a smile. Indeed, it's quite a coincidence. If I recall correctly, we've encountered each other more than once. The mission in the Hidden Cloud Village went smoothly, didn't it? Hearing Asahi's relaxed tone, Orochimaru also felt at ease. Yes, the last mission in the Hidden Cloud Village, I must thank Lord Asagu for helping me conceal my presence. The mission went smoothly, and I gained a lot. Orochimaru explained casually, without any intention of hiding details. By the way, Lord Asahi, I wonder if you're passing by this time, or is there something you need my help with? After explaining, Orochimaru asked Asahi. Upon hearing this, Asahi paused for a moment, glanced at Orochimaru, and wasn't sure what to say. Without a doubt, their objectives in coming here were the same this time. He couldn't casually make a move to seize Orochimaru's chance since the Kusanagi sword was their target. However, Sakumo truly needed a divine weapon, and the Kusanagi sword was undoubtedly the best choice. Therefore, Asahi didn't intend to give way politely. This created a bit of a dilemma. However, this dilemma was only momentary. Asahi hadn't reached the point of having a brain malfunction to the extent of giving away things that were useful to himself or Ogami clan. So, he decided to secure one first. As for the Kusanagi clan, offering them some compensation could be considered a small favor from Asahi. As for Orochimaru, well, he did snatch it from someone else, so it's not a big deal. At worst, when Orochimaru faces danger, I can lend him a hand. Thinking up to this point, just as Asahi was about to speak, Orochimaru spoke first. Are you here for the Kusanagi sword? Orochimaru became clear when Asahi was in the brief moment of hesitation just now. To avoid complications for both parties, Orochimaru took the initiative to speak. Besides, he didn't attach much importance to the Kusanagi sword. Giving up on something so dispensable to gain Asahi's favor was a profitable deal for Orochimaru. Upon hearing Orochimaru's words, Asahi raised an eyebrow in slight surprise. Oh, how did you know? Asahi asked with interest. He wanted to hear how Orochimaru would articulate his purpose with just one sentence. In response to Asahi's question, Orochimaru smiled indifferently, as if he understood everything. I wasn't sure initially, but your momentary hesitation just now confirmed it for me. Also, neither of us would come to such a remote place without reason, and the only thing of value here is the Kusanagi sword. I've heard from Shisui that a sword master has appeared from the Ogami clan. It must be this distinguished person behind you, isn't it? As Orochimaru spoke, his gaze once again focused on Sakumo. There was an inexplicable familiarity with this stranger for Orochimaru. Upon hearing Orochimaru's words, Sakumo remained motionless, like a statue. Asahi understood Sakumo's concerns. After all, Orochimaru's intelligence was exceptionally high, and any momentary lapse could expose Sakumo's identity. Therefore, in response to Orochimaru's question, Asahi merely nodded lightly, expressing his approval. Seeing this, Orochimaru put away his doubts and smiled again. In that case, the senior's purpose is quite clear. You've come to seek the Kusanagi sword for this distinguished person behind you. Given the Lord Asahi's intelligence, you must have instantly sensed my intentions, which is why you find it troublesome. After hearing Orochimaru's words, Asahi couldn't help but applaud him. Orochimaru's intelligence was truly remarkable. Now that you know my purpose, I'm curious about your thoughts, Asahi said, stopping the applause and speaking again. In contrast, Orochimaru just chuckled lightly. Since Lord Asahi desires the Kusanagi sword, I naturally has no intention of competing. Moreover, my purpose for this journey isn't solely the Kusanagi sword. Compared to the Kusanagi sword, I'm more interested in the Kusanagi clan, the ones capable of crafting such a sword. I can help the senior find the Kusanagi sword and reduce your troubles. However, after Lord Asahi obtains the Kusanagi sword, I hope to ask a question. Orochimaru spoke calmly, and this was a thought that had occurred to him only recently. Asahi's arrival had sparked Orochimaru's increased curiosity about the information that Ogami clan possessed. After all, Orochimaru had spent over a year collecting information to locate the legendary Kusanagi clan, overcoming many errors along the way. Yet, Asahi had managed to find this place as well. This indicated that the information held by Ogami clan was far beyond Orochimaru's imagination. It stirred ripples in his heart, suggesting that perhaps Asahi might know the answers he had been seeking. Of course, Orochimaru was unaware that Asahi had come equipped with a map scanner, superb sensory ability. Also, if it weren't for Asahi's fortunate discovery of Orochimaru here, he might have searched the entire ninja world to find the hiding place of the Kusanagi clan. In response to Orochimaru's request, Asahi gave him a puzzled look. However, he promptly agreed. After all, it was good to save some trouble. Chapter 170, Kusanagi Sword. What's crucial is that if Orochimaru takes action, Asahi can avoid a lot of consequences. Although it's too early for Asahi to talk about karma at his current level, Asahi's vision extends beyond the present. Karma is a concept often depicted in various novels, and who knows if it holds significant importance. Seeing Asahi's agreement, Orochimaru felt delighted. Initially, he had only asked tentatively, considering Asahi's strength on display. Even if he added himself to the equation, they wouldn't stir up much trouble. Despite Orochimaru's recent rapid progress, he was well aware of his limitations. However, to his surprise, Asahi agreed, and Orochimaru couldn't be happier. In that case, please wait a moment, Lord Asahi. I'll be right back. The joy on Orochimaru's face was hard to conceal as he slightly bowed to Asahi, preparing to enter the Kusanagi clan's territory and seize the Kusanagi sword. Wait. Asahi reached out and stopped Orochimaru, who looked at him with a puzzled expression. Asahi spoke, remember, don't go too hard on them. Leave some compensation for the Kusanagi clan. Orochimaru was momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected Asahi to have such considerations. In the ninja world, strength was everything. Without strength, even if a clan faced extinction, it was their fault. Although Orochimaru had made rapid progress recently, he was realistic about his abilities. But now, Asahi was suggesting a more tempered approach. It was unexpected. In the ninja world, where strength was the ultimate currency, showing mercy to the weak was a rare sentiment. Asahi was fully aware of the situation, having grown up in the world of democracy. He had always been against bullying the weak, especially when the Kusanagi clan had done nothing wrong. Among the few rules of the Ogami clan, there was one that explicitly stated this. In response to Asahi's request, Orochimaru was somewhat surprised but readily agreed. I understand, senior. I will leave behind some ninjutsu techniques and chakra cultivation methods. With that said, Orochimaru flashed away from the spot, heading towards the Kusanagi clan. Watching Orochimaru's departing figure, Asahi nodded slightly at Sakumo. In that case, let's wait a bit. Asahi said, sitting down in place, quietly anticipating. It wasn't that he didn't want to talk, but Sakumo remained silent, and Asahi wasn't one to speak to himself. Time passed quickly, and Orochimaru reappeared in front of Asahi with a swift movement. A small Kusanagi clan couldn't stop Orochimaru. If it weren't for Asahi's request, Orochimaru's speed would have been even faster. After descending, a couple of jutsu related to Snake instantly defeat the entire Kusanagi clan. Leaving one or two survivors for personal experiments and to extract the whereabouts of the Kusanagi sword. There was no need for a stealthy infiltration like now, using genjutsu one after another. Holding a Kusanagi clan member in each hand, Orochimaru stood in front of Asahi. What's this? Asahi looked at the unconscious pair. Wasn't Orochimaru supposed to search for the Kusanagi sword? Did the Kusanagi sword come to life? Soon, Asahi got his answer. Orochimaru suddenly opened his mouth wide, and two swords were spat out. Lord Asahi, these two are my chosen test subjects. I'm still very interested in the Kusanagi clan. These two are the remaining Kusanagi swords of the Kusanagi clan. Orochimaru casually tossed the unconscious pair onto the ground, holding one sword in each hand. Looking at the Kusanagi swords, seemingly still moist with Orochimaru's saliva, Asahi couldn't help but furrow his brow. Although he had seen it in the anime, experiencing it firsthand was a bit hard to accept. The rarity of this event was such that Asahi, for a moment, forgot that Orochimaru had this trick up his sleeve. As Asahi looked at the two swords in Orochimaru's hands, he directly gave Sakumo a meaningful glance, indicating him to pick them up. As for the two unlucky Kusanagi clan members thrown to the ground by Orochimaru, who was still unconscious, Asahi simply ignored them. He's not a saint. Having obtained the Kusanagi swords from the Kusanagi clan, he had already asked Orochimaru to leave enough compensation. If the Kusanagi clan encountered any trouble later, it had nothing to do with him, Asahi. At this moment, under the mask, Sakumo's face twitched for a moment. Although he wanted a legendary weapon like the Kusanagi swords, he couldn't bring himself to touch something that came out of Orochimaru's mouth. However, Sakumo ultimately suppressed the disgust in his heart and took the two swords from Orochimaru's hands. He infused chakra into one of the swords, and the blade extended sharply. Seeing this, Orochimaru explained, according to the records of the Kusanagi clan, the Kusanagi Uchigatana, Orochimaru, characteristic is an extremely strong stretch ability, almost an unlimited extension. Listening to Orochimaru's hoarse voice explaining, Shokum lightly waved the Kusanagi Uchigatana sword in his hand. Although it was a legendary weapon with unparalleled durability and strong stretchability, Sakumo wasn't very fond of this sword. The reason was simple, it didn't suit him. If it came to a surprise attack, this sword might be the best in the world. However, Sakumo followed the path of direct confrontation, a straightforward and unyielding approach, more like a samurai than a ninja. So, the Kusanagi Uchigatana sword wasn't very suitable for him. With a casual swing, Sakumo gave up the idea of using it. If it didn't feel right, even if it was a legendary weapon, it couldn't unleash Sakumo's true strength as much as an ordinary sword. Handing the Kusanagi Uchigatana to Orochimaru, why not to Asahi? Didn't he just see Asahi being a bit disdainful earlier? Sakumo infused chakra into the Kusanagi Chokyuto, Suzuki, wanting to see its characteristics. This time, as Sakumo channeled chakra into the sword, the blade instantly erupted with dazzling lightning. Asahi understood that this lightning was due to Sakumo's chakra attribute. Sakumo's eyes instantly lit up, through the mask. Even Asahi and Orochimaru could sense Sakumo's fondness for this sword. It seems that this Chokyuto Kusanagi is indeed very suitable for you, sir. With the lightning shining on the blade, Orochimaru's hoarse voice reached Sakumo's ears. Chapter 171, Immortality Path. The Kusanagi Chokyuto is truly an excellent weapon, murmured Sakumo quietly. Seeing Sakumo's reaction, Orochimaru hastily continued, that's right, the sword in your hands is called the Chokyuto of Kusanagi sword. According to the records of the Kusanagi clan, this sword possesses the characteristics of both toughness and sharpness. Moreover, the Chokyuto of Kusanagi sword has excellent chakra guiding properties. Holding the Chokyuto Kusanagi, Sakumo satisfiedly performed a few sword skills. Seeing this, Asahi understood Sakumo's fondness for the Chokyuto Kusanagi. Waving his hand, Asahi casually said, since you, Byakko, fancy this Chokyuto Kusanagi, our mission on this trip can be considered accomplished. Asahi's tone was relaxed as if the item he mentioned was a simple tool and not the so-called legendary weapon Kusanagi swords. However, no one in the scene commented on Asahi's apparent pretentiousness. After all, their perspectives were different, and naturally, their pursuits varied. Even Asahi himself had gradually become accustomed to this shift in thinking. Sakumo didn't decline and readily accepted. Orochimaru just smiled calmly, looked at the Kusanagi swords in his hands, handed them directly to Asahi, and said, Lord Asahi, please arrange the fate of this Uchigatana Kusanagi. In response to Orochimaru's gesture, Asahi just smiled lightly and shook his head. No need. You decide for yourself about this sword. Byakko has already found his weapon, and I don't need one. Asahi didn't accept the precious swords from Orochimaru's hands. For him, the value of these swords was negligible, he was the most potent weapon. Orochimaru was momentarily stunned, he hadn't expected Asahi to be indifferent even to divine weapons. However, Orochimaru quickly understood. Judging from Asahi's previous actions, weapons indeed had little use for him. After realizing this, Orochimaru didn't insist, directly collecting the Uchigatana Kusanagi back. As for where he stored it and the methods he used, they probably shouldn't be elaborated on. Judging by the frown on Asahi's face, the method indeed wasn't normal. Regardless, Orochimaru liked the Uchigatana Kusanagi. Although he didn't often use weapons, the sudden and unexpected attack capabilities of the Uchigatana Kusanagi could still catch opponents off guard when wielded by him. After putting away the legendary Kusanagi swords, Orochimaru shifted his gaze back to Asahi. Asahi only slightly paused, then understood Orochimaru's intention. A slight smile appeared on Asahi's face as he spoke softly. "If you have any questions, feel free to ask. As long as I know, I'll tell you the truth." Hearing this, Orochimaru took a deep breath and then slowly asked, "Then, Lord Asahi, is there a path to immortality in this world?" Asahi was momentarily stunned. Why did this dialogue sound so familiar? Could it be that Orochimaru was truly the protagonist of this world? Asahi knew that the future Orochimaru would embark on the path of seeking immortality, but he didn't expect it to happen so early. No wonder Orochimaru was willing to give up a legendary weapon just to get an answer from him. Seeing Asahi's momentary pause, Orochimaru wasn't surprised. After all, the question about immortality was too extraordinary. Even powerful figures like the first Hokage hadn't achieved it, so how could ordinary people know about such matters? As such, Orochimaru expected Asahi's momentary astonishment, and it was well within his predictions. At this moment, Orochimaru no longer held hope of receiving an answer. However, what he didn't know was that Asahi's momentary pause wasn't due to a lack of understanding of the answer but rather astonishment at the way he posed the question. So, in the next moment, the words Orochimaru had been pursuing for a long time came out of Asahi's mouth. "The path to immortality does exist." Upon hearing this, Orochimaru was first stunned, then ecstatic. He had prepared himself mentally for not getting an answer, and the unexpected result made him overjoyed. "May I ask, sir, how should one tread this path?" Excitedly, Orochimaru took a step forward and inquired. In contrast to Orochimaru's excitement, Asahi calmly replied, "That depends on which path you want to take." Orochimaru stared wide-eyed in amazement. Even the one known as the Cold Blood, Orochimaru, couldn't suppress his astonishment at this moment. Because, from Asahi's words, it was not hard to guess that there was more than one path to immortality. "Could it be that you know many methods for immortality?" Orochimaru asked tentatively, unable to believe that he would receive such an answer. Asahi shrugged and said, "Naturally. Under the trajectory of history, there are always one or two geniuses who forge a completely new path to immortality. Things like altering genes to become another species for the effect of immortality are quite common." Asahi wasn't lying about this. Things like elves or vampires were quite common in such operations. It's just that Asahi didn't know how to perform such operations. Upon hearing Asahi's words, Orochimaru's eyes instantly gleamed with excitement. "Then, Lord Asahi, which paths to immortality do you think I can currently embark on?" Orochimaru asked with narrowed eyes, and his heart was filled with anticipation. Asahi didn't play coy about it. Since he had already disclosed this much to Orochimaru, he felt a bit more could be shared. "For you the methods of puppet modification, the transformative alteration of life forms, or the art of possession and reincarnation," Asahi replied. Afterward, he cast a deep gaze at Orochimaru. After all, in the original story, Orochimaru pursued the path of possession and reincarnation. Of course, even though he succeeded, he left himself with significant flaws. Severe damage to the soul led to a substantial reduction in resistance to illusions. Upon hearing Asahi's answer, Orochimaru's eyes flickered for a moment. Just from the names, he could already roughly guess the general forms of these methods. Puppet modification, as the name suggests, is similar to turning oneself into a puppet, transforming into an inanimate object while retaining consciousness. If one is considered dead, the concept of death no longer applies, and achieving immortality becomes relatively easy. The art of possession and reincarnation involves abandoning one's original physical body and using the soul to occupy the body of another, thus maintaining one's life force. As for the transformative alteration of life forms, although it is not as concrete, it's not hard to speculate that it involves elevating one's life level through some form of training or means. Each of the three methods has its pros and cons. Puppet modification is the quickest but comes with limitations in the future. Possession and reincarnation, while effective, carry high risks and potential accidents. As for transformative alteration of life forms, it may seem safer, but it requires a considerable amount of time or resources. Chapter 172, Ninja War Continue. Faced with these three choices, Orochimaru expressed his intrigue. Previously, there was no choice, and now he wasn't sure how to choose. May I ask, sir, among these three methods, which one is the grand path? Orochimaru bowed and asked Asahi. He had asked many questions before, but to obtain more answers, he treated Asahi with even greater respect. Asahi naturally understood Orochimaru's thoughts, and he didn't conceal anything. After all, in his view, this information wasn't particularly important, mostly common knowledge. Facing Orochimaru's inquiry, Asahi directly spoke. It's not about any grand path, but the best route is undoubtedly to strive for cultivation, transcend, elevate your life form, and thus extend your lifespan. The method of puppet modification, intending to preserve consciousness, will inevitably leave vulnerabilities. The restrictions are too great, and a slight oversight can easily be exploited. As for the art of possession and reincarnation, the damage to the soul is too severe. A small mistake could lead to irreversible consequences. Certainly, although the advantage lies in transcending through cultivation, Asahi didn't mention to Orochimaru that mastering the arts of becoming an immortal required the essential practice of secret art. Without the cultivation of secret art, it would be nearly impossible to transcend using the extracted energies within one's body. However, even without Asahi explicitly stating it, given Orochimaru's intelligence, he could not overlook the fact that special training methods were required for transcending through cultivation. After hearing Asahi's words, Orochimaru fell into silence, contemplating for a moment. Subsequently, he cast aside the method of puppet modification. Originally, this method wasn't under Orochimaru's consideration, especially now that he learned of its fatal flaws, he found it even less appealing. As for the remaining two, Orochimaru remained indecisive. Cultivation, of course, was not a simple process. Otherwise, Konoha would not be lacking in information on this matter. Since he couldn't directly ask Asahi for the cultivation method, he had to figure it out on his own, which was quite challenging. Regarding the exchange for the method of eternal life, Orochimaru didn't believe he had anything that would catch Asahi's eye. Comparatively, developing a technique for possession and reincarnation seemed easier. However, this method had significant drawbacks. At this moment, Orochimaru was torn about which path to choose. May I ask, sir, which path have you chosen, and have you succeeded? Orochimaru asked again, hoping to get the final answer from Asahi. Asahi, anticipating this question, had a ready example. It would be strange if Orochimaru didn't ask. So, Asahi shrugged and said, I chose the path of cultivation. I'm still far from success, but my lifespan has increased considerably. Thanks to the feedback from secret art, his current lifespan, if there are no any unforeseen circumstances, should smoothly reach around 300 years. Orochimaru, upon hearing this, merely nodded thoughtfully. Asahi, having conveyed this information, chose not to say much more. Sharing these details with Orochimaru was already an act of benevolence. As for what Orochimaru would choose in the future and whether he would be the same person when they met again, it was no longer of concern to Asahi. For now, his primary task was to break through himself. After spending so much time outside, he had long adjusted his mindset. Now that matters were resolved, it was time to go back and continue the breakthrough. Therefore, Asahi turned around and left with Kakashi Hatake directly. As for Orochimaru, he was deeply engrossed in contemplation at this moment, almost impervious to the outside world's influence. If someone were to attempt to assassinate Orochimaru now, the chances would be 80% success. From this perspective, it could also be seen how fervently Orochimaru pursued immortality. It was precisely because of this that Asahi silently left without saying a word. Disturbing someone lost in thought was not the right course of action. When Orochimaru snapped back to reality, he discovered that Asahi had long since departed. He could only sigh wryly at himself. It seemed he was too absorbed in his contemplation, to the point of neglecting any sense of vigilance. Even so, he had not made a final decision yet. It was a step-by-step process, and fortunately, there was still time to explore both paths. Orochimaru sighed softly in his heart. Subsequently, he bowed slightly in the direction Asahi had come from, expressing his gratitude. After all, Asahi had provided him with two potential paths for the future. Then, Orochimaru no longer lingered, lifting up the two members of the Kusanagi clan lying on the ground, and dashed towards the direction of Konoha. He had stayed outside for quite some time, but considering the current situation in the ninja world, he still needed to preside over the village to prevent any unforeseen events. Separated from Orochimaru, Asahi quickly returned to the dragon vein of Varan with Sakumo. Sensing the surging energy underground, Asahi felt a surge of confidence within. This time, he was determined to break through and transcend this world. Thinking about this, Asahi swiftly entered a state of meditation. Mobilizing the energy of the ley line, he endeavored to enhance his own abilities. However, the progress of his meditation remained as slow as ever. After all, breaking through into the level of 6 path was a significant challenge within the Naruto world, with the suppression of certain world rules making it difficult. Asahi was well prepared for this and remained calm in his heart. Time was abundant, and he would take it slow. Time passed bit by bit in Asahi's meditation, and Sakumo, in the role of a guardian, also worked diligently. Time passed slowly. In the 47th year of Konoha, Sasori, who had been lurking for several years, began his own plan. The third Kazekage of the Hidden Sand Village was assassinated by him and turned into a human puppet. With the disappearance of the third Kazekage, the internal crisis within the Hidden Sand Village could no longer be suppressed. Numerous ninja were not satisfied with their current living conditions and yearned for more. To maintain the stability of the village, the higher UPS in the Hidden Sand Village directly shifted the blame for the third Kazekage's disappearance onto Konoha. Of course, they knew that Konoha was not responsible for this. However, they needed a scapegoat and launching a war was the best choice. So, rather than seeking revenge for the third Kazekage, the Hidden Sand Village's actions seemed more driven by their growing ambitions. The third Kazekage was just an excuse. Some even speculated within the Hidden Sand that someone in their own ranks was dissatisfied with the third Kazekage's restraint and had committed the outrageous act of killing their own leader. As for why they shifted the blame onto Konoha, do we even need to ask? It's because the Fire Country is so wealthy, and the natural conditions are so favorable. Chapter 173, 6 Path Level. Konoha has been surrounded by enemies in recent years. They've not only engaged in intense battles with the Mist Village of the Land of Water but have also ignited conflicts with the Cloud Village of the Land of Lightning and the Rock Village of the Land of Earth. In the upcoming attack on Konoha by the 4 major ninja villages, with no first or second Hokage and even the White Fang, and the Sunin not fully present, what could Konoha use to resist? The people of the Hidden Sand were also planning to take a bite out of Konoha during the chaos and benefit themselves. With the Hidden Sand formally joining the war, the fate of all 5 major ninja villages was sealed, and the Third Great Ninja War officially began. Following this, chaos spread globally. Even in Varan, there were occasional encounters with wandering ninjas, scattered army ninjas, and bandits. However, the civilians of Varan, though ordinary people, remained unharmed. Having experienced great hardships, the people of Varan were not afraid of ordinary bandits. As for those ninjas, Varan has the protection of Asahi and Sakumo. After all, Varan has provided them with logistical support for so many years, and it's only fair for them to lend a helping hand. Of course, Asahi didn't need to intervene. The current Sakumo could easily deal with ordinary elite jonin, and the lower-level ninja was like ants in his hands. After all, after a year of training, Sakumo's Sage Mode could be maintained for an extended period. Would elite ninjas bother coming to such a remote place? Dragon Vein Altar. Naturally, they wouldn't, so Asahi didn't even need to take action. However, to ensure the safety of Varan and to allow Asahi to focus on his training, Sakumo sent all the invaders to the Pure Land. Of course, it was partly their greed that led to this outcome. If they had followed the rules and not attacked the civilian in them, Sakumo wouldn't have intervened. However, this was a common occurrence. After all, in times of war, human nature is suppressed. Rules and regulations don't seem that important during wartime. Regardless, over time, this region area slowly gained a notorious reputation. Because all the intruding ninjas or bandits disappeared without a trace, not even a bit of information leaked out. Rumors spread that deep within the desert, there was a haunted territory. Anyone who entered never came out alive. As the notoriety of this haunted territory grew, fewer and fewer people came to disturb Asahi and the others. Although occasionally there were a few stubborn individuals who, after breaking in, saw the refugees of Lauren as easy prey, wanting to make a fortune. However, the frequency had decreased significantly compared to the early days of the war. After all, humans are fearful of the unknown. No one is willing to risk their safety to explore strange things. With the birth of the invaders, the Queen of Varan, Sarah, also came to realize reality. The so-called ninja would not harm ordinary people. In the end, it was an unwritten rule. During peacetime, ninjas would still adhere to this unwritten rule. But during times of war, who would be overflowing with kindness? Whether alive or dead, as powerless ordinary people, Sarah and her people had no choice. Everything depended on the ninjas who held absolute power. So, Sarah understood. Only by wielding formidable strength could she better protect Varan. If she hadn't rejected Asahi at the time, perhaps she could have grown into a ninja with formidable strength over the years. Maybe, if faced with a ninja invasion, she could defeat the invaders with her power. Sarah often thought about it, but she didn't regret her choice at the beginning, only harboring a slight regret. After all, at that time, she didn't know that the ninja world during the war would be so chaotic. Her choice at the time was following her own heart. A/N, by the way, although Sarah's memories were sealed, it only sealed the part related to Naruto. Although there are some gaps in the events before and after, she still remembers when Asahi said he wanted to take her as a disciple. However, even if he was well aware of it in his heart, he wouldn't say much. The opportunity was given, whether Sarah seized it or not was her matter. After Varan was attacked, Sarah also requested to become Asahi's disciple. However, Asahi rejects her. Some opportunities, once missed, were missed. Although Asahi didn't take Sarah as a disciple, due to his appreciation for her, he imparted the basic chakra training method of the secret art Ogami clan to her. Subsequently, Sarah was arranged by Asahi to become a disciple of Sakumo. In comparison, Sakumo was full of complaints. He had no intention of taking on a disciple in the first place, and Asahi insisted on handing her over to him. Moreover, Sarah was not suitable for practicing kenjutsu. You see, as a master of swordsmanship, what else could he teach her besides sword techniques? However, because it was Asahi's request, Sakumo reluctantly agreed. Sarah, on the other hand, was very happy. Although she didn't become Asahi's disciple, she still recognized Sakumo's strength. From that day on, in Asahi's training ground, in addition to Sakumo as the guardian, there was also Sarah coming to practice. As time passed day by day, Asahi approached the breakthrough. However, breaking through was like a long-distance race. You've already covered the previous 99%, but it's these last 1% that are the most difficult. Because Asahi used natural breakthrough by his own effort with the help of Dragon Vein, this last step took him a whopping 6 months. But hard work pays off. Just over a year after the outbreak of the Great Ninja War, in the 48th year of Konoha, Asahi finally broke through. On this day, while Sakumo was guiding Sarah in her training, a terrifying pressure suddenly came. At this moment, even someone as strong as Sakumo felt an overwhelming sense of powerlessness, with no way to resist. Of course, this wasn't intentional on Asahi's part, it was because he had just broken through and couldn't control his own power. Moreover, since Asahi broke through the 6 paths on his own, rather than relying on external forces like the 10 tails, his breakthrough aligned more with the natural laws of the Naruto world, significantly enhancing the pressure. In ordinary times, he would never release this level of pressure. Chapter 174, Sage of Six Path, Otsutsuki Hago Romo. Such pressure would have been felt throughout the entire ninja world. However, strangely, except for Sakumo and Sarah, who were closest to Asahi, even the survivors of Varan not far away did not sense any disturbance in the air. Awakening from his state, Asahi, now aware of the surging energy within him, quickly controlled and calmed it down. As Asahi consciously suppressed his pressure, both Sakumo and Sarah felt a sense of relief. With the stabilization of the energy, Asahi exuded an overall calmness. However, as Asahi focused on understanding himself, he realized that this breakthrough might not allow him to transcend the Naruto world. Could it be that reaching the next level is necessary for breaking through this world level? Asahi had previously sensed the realm of 6 paths and expected a smooth progression. However, after breaking through to the 6 paths, he discovered that he couldn't perceive the nature of the energy of the next level of breakthrough. According to Asahi's estimation, it seemed impossible to break through the so-called level of transcendence of Naruto's world. Compared to the energy at that level, it felt like something was missing in this world's energy. At this point, Asahi furrowed his brow, contemplating the energy within himself and the world. As Asahi delved into his introspection, he unexpectedly sensed that the surrounding energy seemed to be manipulated. No, it wasn't but it was being controlled. The surrounding energy at this moment resembled a large-scale ceiling matrix, directly isolating Asahi as the center within a radius of several kilometers. This was also the reason why the terrifying pressure from Asahi did not spread out. Upon this discovery, Asahi's eyes narrowed, staring intently into the nearby air. At this moment, he shifted his thoughts about why he couldn't break through the world and how to get closer. Then, he asked slowly, Sage of Six Path, Otsutsuki Hago Romo. Asahi's tone carried a sense of inquiry, but it also conveyed an inexplicable certainty. At this moment, Asahi could sense a special energy fluctuation hidden in the void he was staring at. Among those who could achieve this level in the Naruto world, only Otsutsuki Hago Romo, the Sage of Six Paths, was capable. With the fall of Asahi's voice, invisible ripples instantly appeared in the void. A wave of energy rapidly took on a humanoid form, gradually solidifying from an illusionary state. Fortunately, Asahi was practicing within the altar, preventing Sakumo and Sarah from observing him. Otherwise, the sudden appearance of Otsutsuki Hago Romo would have been enough to put them on high alert. Looking at Asahi in front of him, Otsutsuki Hago Romo also wore an expression of astonishment. He had just been in a deep slumber, and suddenly, a shock of natural energy woke him up. Following that was an unparalleled pressure. This troubled him, an old soul, as he hastily intervened to block this wave of pressure, fearing it might disturb the stability of this world. However, the pressure released in harmony with the natural energy was something even he couldn't easily resist. Fortunately, Asahi was in an extremely desolate place. By slightly expanding the range of his technique, Otsutsuki Hago Romo managed to block the pressure. However, it was tough for Sakumo and Sarah, who felt legendary level pressure up close. As Asahi adjusted his state, Otsutsuki Hago Romo had the opportunity to observe the first human in the ninja world to break through to the level of Six Paths solely by himself. Yet, the shock came right after observation. He found that the ninja world imprints on this person were incredibly shallow. Since merging his soul with the world a millennium ago, he gained the ability to see the connection between an individual and the world. At this point, he had a rough guess. However, he wasn't entirely sure. But as soon as Asahi spoke his name, Otsutsuki Hagoromo's thoughts instantly solidified. Normal individuals wouldn't be so certain of his identity. "Hello, outsider," said Otsutsuki Hago Romo, appearing from the void with a grandfatherly smile. He seemed like a peaceful old man. However, upon hearing his words, Asahi's brows furrowed. "Outsider?" Otsutsuki Hago Romo could see through his background. This realization surprised Asahi. After all, it was the first time someone had seen through his background. Moreover, this Otsutsuki Hago Romo was by no means as simple as the Six Paths level. From him, Asahi sensed a threatening aura. It made sense, after all, Otsutsuki Hago Romo had reached the Six Paths level 1,000 years ago. Over the years, even if he hadn't advanced to the next level, his accumulation was beyond comparison. No wonder he could easily grant Naruto and Sasuke extensions, propelling them to the Six Paths level. Asahi understood now. It wasn't that he wasn't doing well, it was just that Naruto and Sasuke had the colossal support of a super VIP. VIP, plot armor equals Sage of Six Path. However, this wasn't good news. What if Otsutsuki Hago Romo had some unfavorable intentions? Asahi might end up in trouble. He was well aware that after reaching his current level, the boost from Sage mode wasn't as significant. Once reaching the Six Paths level, the Sage mode became a constant state. The only advantage he held was the secret arts rewarded by the system. After breaking through to the Six Paths, he discovered that secret arts contained the mysteries of the laws. Secret arts were essentially embodiments of the laws. Previously, when using secret arts, they only grazed the edges of the laws, yet their power was already formidable. Now, Asahi could slowly touch and control the laws of the ninja world. Looking ahead, what level could the power of these arts reach? However, even with powerful art, Asahi acknowledged he was still a rookie in the realm of Six Paths. Despite his confidence in escaping, he worried about Sakumo and Sarah. "Do you know who I am?" Asahi asked cautiously, eyeing Otsutsuki Hago Romo. If anything seemed amiss, he would take action. This revealed Asahi's wariness of Otsutsuki Hago Romo. Facing Asahi's tension and caution, Otsutsuki Hago Romo took a few steps back to dispel any suspicion and tense situation. Although these steps held no significance for them, it demonstrated his attitude. Chapter 175, Chapter 175, Clue on Transcendent Level. With Otsutsuki Hagoromo's actions, Asahi's heart eased a bit. Following that, Otsutsuki Hagoromo continued with a smile. Don't worry, I mean no harm. I just have a general idea of who you are. After all, in this era, it's not common for someone to casually reveal my identity in a single sentence. Hearing Otsutsuki Hagoromo's words, a dark line instantly appeared on Asahi's forehead. Darn it, that was too hasty. Asahi hadn't thought that much about it earlier. Given the tense situation and not knowing what Otsutsuki Hagoromo meant, he wanted to create an air of mystery. However, with just this small oversight, could Otsutsuki Hagoromo confirm his identity? After a moment of speechlessness, the next thing that crossed Asahi's mind was confusion. Asahi relaxed a bit and then looked at Otsutsuki Hagoromo with a puzzled expression, asking, but, just based on this, can't prove that I'm an alleged outsider, right? Seeing Asahi slightly relax, Otsutsuki Hagoromo smiled faintly and said, Indeed, but when I say this, I naturally have my basis. What you don't know is that I now possess the ability to perceive the connection between living beings and the world. Under normal circumstances, a powerful individual like you should have a deep connection with the world. However, the world imprint on you is shallow. It's even less than that of an ordinary native. This is abnormal. It's through this that I confirmed you are not from this world. Otsutsuki Hagoromo explained earnestly to Asahi. After hearing the explanation, Asahi furrowed his brows. You say you can perceive the connection between living beings and the world? Is this an ability possessed by every Six Paths level individual? With a frown, Asahi expressed his doubts. After all, his goal was not limited to just the Naruto world. The Naruto world was only a relatively low-level world. Although the Six Paths level was considered the ceiling here, in other words, it was just an average level. If every Six Paths level being had such an extraordinary ability, it would be highly disadvantageous for Asahi's future development. Facing Asahi's confusion, Otsutsuki Hagoromo gently shook his head, revealing a slightly bitter smile on his face. It's not like that. The Six Paths level doesn't have access to this ability. Even from this level, one can only slowly and gradually comprehend the power of the world's origin. Hearing Otsutsuki Hagoromo's words, Asahi became even more puzzled, frowning as he asked, then, what level of power do you possess? Wait, don't tell me. Asahi didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was already apparent. He was wondering if Otsutsuki Hagoromo had surpassed the Six Paths level. Otsutsuki Hagoromo, who had lived for thousands of years, naturally sensed the implication. At this moment, he had put away the trace of bitterness in his heart and displayed a carefree appearance in front of Asahi. If it weren't for his long slumber, coupled with Asahi's formidable strength, he wouldn't have revealed his inner emotions in front of Asahi. I'm not as powerful as you think. My strength, to be precise, can be considered pseudo-transcendent. Oh, I forgot to explain to you. Although your vitality is very robust, you should be able to feel that even if your strength reaches the Six Paths level, your lifespan is still limited. But based on my speculation, if you can enter the next level, the lifespan of living beings will be like that of this world, coexisting with the heavens and the earth. After all, Mother has been alive for so many years, still immortal. So, I call this realm, transcendent. Listening to Otsutsuki Hagoromo's words, Asahi couldn't help but nod. Indeed, even now, he could easily sense that he was not immortal. Moreover, he agreed with the name of the transcendent level, the next level after the Six Paths level, based on his conjecture. According to his guess, if he could reach this realm, he should be able to break through the world's barriers and reach the next world. As for Kaguya being on the transcendent level, Asahi didn't find it strange. Her clumsy combat skills were easily suppressing the powered-up Naruto and Sasuke, making her deserving of the transcendent realm. Seeing Asahi nod, Otsutsuki Hagoromo paused for a moment before continuing. My ability to perceive the connection between living beings and the world is related to this. I remember back then, just like you, I broke through to the Six Paths level through my own efforts. However, I wasn't as fortunate as you. At that time, I still had Hamura. We engaged in a battle lasting several years to prevent Mother from destroying the world. It was during this battle that we caused severe damage to the world. Since then, we felt the resistance of the world's rules. I and Homura spent decades in training, successfully reaching the peak of the Six Paths level. However, no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't break through. In our quest for a breakthrough, Homura and I left the shinobi world and searched for a way to transcend in the cold vastness of the universe. Finding a planet that could support our breakthrough proved to be extremely difficult. After years of space travel, we found nothing. In disappointment, we had to give up on that path and return to the shinobi world. This time, after several years, we finally figured out why we couldn't break through. Hearing this, Asahi's eyes widened in excitement. He was curious about how to break through to the next level. If he could learn the method from Otsutsuki Hago Romo, he could save a lot of time. Otsutsuki Hago Romo noticed Asahi's excitement but didn't say anything. After all, Asahi would inevitably reach that step, and he couldn't prevent it. It wasn't because Otsutsuki Hago Romo couldn't defeat Asahi, but intervening would inevitably cause irreparable damage to the shinobi world. As the guardian of the shinobi world for centuries, Otsutsuki Hago Romo didn't want such a situation to occur. Moreover, he no longer harbored the ambitions of his youth. Now, all he hoped for was to safeguard the security of the shinobi world. Therefore, everything he did now was aimed at building a positive relationship with Asahi. This way, even if Asahi chose the path of transcendence in the future, it wouldn't harm the world. Chapter 176, Truth of Dragon Vein. Facing Asahi's expectant gaze, Otsutsuki Hago Romo continued. We were rejected by the world, and the origin of this world has lost its vitality, making it impossible to support breakthroughs to higher levels. The origin of the world lost its vitality? Asahi asked in surprise. He wasn't surprised that Otsutsuki Hago Romo was rejected by the world. After all, the battles at the Six Paths level caused significant harm to the world. However, what did it mean for the world's origin to lose its vitality? That's correct. Facing Asahi's confusion, Otsutsuki Hago Romo answered without hesitation. Since you're practicing here, you should also understand that the energy source of this place, the so-called dragon veins you speak of, is closely related to the world's origin. Hearing Otsutsuki Hagoromo's words, Asahi nodded subconsciously. Seeing this, Otsutsuki Hago Romo continued. But what you don't know is that the precursor of the dragon veins is, in fact, the world's origin. Asahi was somewhat surprised by Otsutsuki Hagoromo's words. The precursor is the world's origin. Yes, since you come from another planetary world, you should be familiar with the concept of the God Tree, right? Hearing Otsutsuki Hagoromo's question, Asahi nodded lightly. He never refuted the fact that he came from another world. Even at this moment, he directly acknowledged it. With Otsutsuki Hago Romo mentioning the God Tree, Asahi also had a rough idea. As expected, as Otsutsuki Hago Romo continued to explain, it confirmed Asahi's speculation. Since you know about the God Tree, you should also be aware of its characteristic of absorbing the world's origin to support its growth. After Mother planted the God Tree, it began absorbing the origin power of the shinobi world. As the God Tree grew, although the energy in the shinobi world did not completely disappear, it gradually lost its vitality. At the moment when the God Tree bore fruit, the origin power of the shinobi world completely lost its vitality and turned into a rather violent force. This is also why practicing Sage Mode is so dangerous. With the disappearance of the world's origin vitality, those living in the shinobi world can no longer break through to the state of transcendence. The only way to break through is to utilize the God Tree with the active world origin. Although most of the energy absorbed from the world origin by the God Tree is used to supply the God Tree fruit consumed by Mother. However, there is still a portion of the energy preserved in the trunk of the God Tree. This is also why the chakra, decomposed into 9 parts, from the transformed Ten Tails God Tree trunk can give rise to consciousness. Hearing this, Asahi fully understood the most secretive and previously undisclosed information about the shinobi world. However, he still had some doubts. Since Otsutsuki Hago Romo had identified the problem and found a solution, why hadn't he transcended? So, with a hint of confusion, Asahi asked Otsutsuki Hago Romo, since you've identified the problem and found a solution, why haven't you transcended? Facing Asahi's perplexity, Otsutsuki Hago Romo shook his head helplessly. Then, he looked up at the sky, wanting to see the round moon overhead. Even though it was daytime, and they were in the center of the altar with buildings blocking the view, our chances of breaking through are not very high. As I mentioned before, we are rejected by this world. So, the energy consumption for us to break through is much, much greater than yours. Moreover, if we want to break through, we must merge with 10 tails. Otherwise, achieving it with the scattered chakra from the 9-tailed beasts is simply impossible. However, doing so would inevitably give Mother a chance to break free from her seal. After all, at that time, Mother had already transcended, and shortly after being sealed, the power within her could resonate with the 10 tails. With a slight mistake, she could break the seal. Although at that time, our strength had reached the peak 6 paths, coupled with various means, if we joined forces, we were much stronger than Mother. However, sealing Mother once with our own hands was already heartbreaking enough for us. If we were to seal her again, I truly couldn't bring myself to do it. After all, if Mother hadn't shown mercy back then, we wouldn't have been able to seal her. So, we owe Mother an apology. Moreover, at that time, we were also approaching our natural end, and we didn't want to go through the trouble again. So, none of us chose to transcend. But we were also afraid that Mother might break free from the seal in the future, harboring thoughts of destroying the world once again. I myself was already on the verge of death, so I directly abandoned my physical body, merging my soul with this planet to maintain the stability of this world. This action also brought my strength one step closer to the realm of pseudo-transcendence. At the same time, due to the fusion with the world, I gained the ability to perceive the connection between living beings in the world. After explaining everything, Otsutsuki Hago Romo let out a long sigh. As for Asahi, upon hearing Otsutsuki Hagoromo's words, his expression became quite lively. Tisk tisk, look at this grandeur. Seeing Asahi's suddenly lively expression, even Otsutsuki Hago Romo, with his millennia-old composure, couldn't help but twitch a bit. Come on, I'm talking about such serious matters, what on earth is going through your mind? Cough cough child, we've talked so much, but I still don't know what to call you. Helplessly, Otsutsuki Hago Romo had to bring Asahi back from his chaotic thoughts. Upon hearing Otsutsuki Hagoromo's words, Asahi, who had already set aside his nervousness, once again let his thoughts wander. However, although Asahi's mind was very active, at this moment, he stabilized his thoughts and didn't show his thoughts on his face again. Instead, with a serious expression, he said to Otsutsuki Hago Romo, "My name is Asahi Ogami, currently the head of the Ogami clan." Upon hearing Asahi's self-introduction, Otsutsuki Hago Romo nodded. He wasn't curious about the unfamiliar clan name Ogami, after all, Asahi was an outsider, and it was normal not to have heard of it. What he wanted to do now was to try to maintain the stability of the shinobi world and take the most cautious path.
Thanks for listening.